All righty. Good morning, and a pleasant good morning to each and every one of you. It's great to have you with us here on Dialed In. I'm Tom Brenneman. We come your way twice a week. Casey, let's pop that back up there, please, if we could. Good morning, by the way.
Good morning.
You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
I mean, when you're here solo, you got to be on all of it.
Yeah, I gotta make sure everything's squared away, and I was here pretty early for that.
You were.
I still find ways to.
That's okay. We all do. You had a good weekend?
Yeah, I had a pretty good weekend. It was I'm starting to really like this time of year, Tom.
Yeah.
Because I put a tweet out the other day when this happened, but Saturdays for me now are baseball, soccer. It's just sports all around.
Yep.
So I'm really enjoying it. I get to just have a day where I just watch nothing but sports. And
it's better. I mean, let's be honest about it. It's better when the weather was like it was this weekend.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Again today here in Hamilton, Ohio, nothing but sunshine. We're creeping up in the high 70s. I don't know if we're officially in spring yet or not because we know how the weather is around here. You always feel like we're going to have another one of those blasts where it's 48 for a high,
Yeah.
in April. But we'll see. Welcome to Dialed In. Great to have you with us. We come your way twice a week, live here on Mondays at 9:15 a.m. on Chatterbox Sports, and then we post a little bit later on in the day on the Believe Network. Fridays, we're on both networks. We post on Believe. We're live on Chatterbox Sports at noon following Off the Bench. You can join us. Just go to YouTube, the Chatterbox Sports page. And you can download us anywhere, anytime, wherever you find your podcast. Just download or search Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, and you're dialed in. Fridays, we like to have a big interview. We've had, Chip Carey in the past. We have had Chris Myers from Fox. We had Justin Williams from The Athletic to talk about NIL and all that kind of stuff. Charlie Goldsmith talks by. Last week, I thought was a really interesting interview. And apparently some of you did too, because our downloads were through the roof. With Stan Conti, longtime trainer in Major League Baseball with the Giants, Dodgers, Marlins, but he was also the director of medicine for all three of those franchises. And he has studied for better than 35 years injuries, particularly pitchers and injuries. And that's all everybody's talking about right now. How many pitchers are getting hurt and requiring Tommy John, shoulder problems? Check it out. Stan Conti was with us last week. We invite you to follow us on X at Tom Brenneman TV, and it's great to have you with us. What a weekend for the Local 9, your Cincinnati Reds. As you and I talked last Friday, they were going to the south side of Chicago to face a bad White Sox team. And when I say bad, goodness gracious, I had no idea they were that bad, right? That team is awful. So the Reds did what you're supposed to do when you play really bad teams, swept them. First sweep of the year. Cincinnati outscored Chicago 27-5 over the weekend. Now, most people like to talk about the 27, right? The big hits, the home runs, on and on and on. That's good stuff. But on Dialed In, we like talking about the 5, as in 5 runs allowed. Starting pitching was unbelievable. Andrew Abbott goes 7 on Friday night. Graham Ashcraft almost gets through 6 yesterday. But the story was the return of Nick Lodolo after basically missing an entire year with a broken leg. He is without question, and we've said this many times on the show, that when he's able to take the ball, he is by far the best Reds pitcher. There's no contest at the end of the day between him and Hunter Green. None. Not to say Hunter Green can't be a great pitcher, because there's always that chance. But Lodolo really has a chance to be a special guy. TCU alum, went 5 2/3 innings on Saturday, allowed 1 hit, 1 walk, struck out 10. How about that for a season debut? With a 3-game win streak, the Reds sit 3 games over 500, 9 up, 6 down on the year. They trail co-leading Milwaukee and Pittsburgh by a game and a half in the National League's Central Division. Competition gets a little bit better, and I say a little bit better, starting tonight as they open a 3-game set in Seattle. The Mariners are 6-10, and listen to this stat. This is all you need to know. They've played 1 more game than the Reds, okay? They have scored 49 runs. They're one of 4 teams in Major League Baseball that has not scored 50 runs so far this year. For comparison's sake, the Reds have played one less game. They've scored 90. Frankie Montas starts for the Reds. George Kirby for Seattle. Kirby, his first start, went into the seventh, didn't allow a run. His last two games, he's allowed 13 runs over 7 innings. Congratulations to Andrew McCutchen. First-class guy all the way, always has been. He clubbed his 300th career home run yesterday at Philadelphia. He is the 13th player. Think about this for a minute, right? And I'm not here to suggest that Andrew McCutchen is a Hall of Famer. But when you stop and think about this, there have been 13 players of the tens of thousands of players that have played baseball in the major leagues. He is one of 13 players, 2,000 or more hits, 400 or more doubles, 45 or more triples, 300 or more home runs, 200 or more stolen bases. That is pretty amazing. All right, shifting gears for the second time in 3 years, Scottie Scheffler wins the Masters. The world's number one ranked player finished 11 under par to beat Ludvig Oberg. That kid's going to be good. Beat him by 4 shots. Tommy Fleetwood, Max Homa, Colin Morikawa finished 4 under par. Scheffler joins Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus, the GOAT, Jack Nicklaus, as the only 3 players to win multiple championships at the Players' Championship Tournament and the Masters. Scheffler, if you watched yesterday, and look, yesterday, for whatever reason, I watched a lot. I don't know why. It was a beautiful day outside. I was outside a lot. But I always love watching the guy who's the best player in the world when it's truly nut-cutting time. If you watched that yesterday, you had like 5 or 6 guys that were right there, right? And then one would, drop one in the water. Another guy had a bad bounce, Homa did, coming in on a par 3. It hit the green hard and skipped up into the bushes, had to take a penalty. Morikawa just fell apart, had a couple of double bogeys. Scheffler never screws up. And if he does, I was introduced on the broadcast yesterday to something called basically a comeback hole, which after you have a bogey or a double bogey or something like that, what do you do the next hole? He's the best player on the tour in that category. He had the best score of any player on the course yesterday, 68. Man, when you're number one and you're sitting in first place and you fire the best score of the day, that is getting it done. That's a big leaguer, Scottie Scheffler. Congratulations. For those that care, do you care about the NBA playoffs, Casey?
I'll care about it just because there's some it becomes
gambling
serious
opportunities.
Yeah, there's some more serious gambling opportunities because now they're starting to actually compete again.
Right.
Whereas the last 3 weeks they've just kind of been whatever.
Well, some teams have been playing hard because they're trying to get in the playoffs.
Kind of.
Right.
Yeah. Kind of.
Okay. Well, the NBA playoffs start tomorrow night. Now you have 4 teams in each conference will start a play-in tournament. Okay, so 1 through 7 in each conference is already decided. These other 4 teams are playing a tournament to decide who's going to be the 8th seed. So in the East, the 4 teams are the Bulls, the Hawks, the Heat, and the Sixers. Out West, pretty interesting out West, because you got the Lakers and the Warriors, along with the Pelicans and the Kings. Boston, the number 1 seed. In the East, Cleveland is a 4 seed. Oklahoma City is a top seed in the West. I want to get to a couple of things, and thank all of you who are in the chat. Some of you might have some points or some questions and all that kind of thing. Evan wants me to do the Scottie Scheffler shuffle.
The Scottie Shuffle?
Scottie Shuffle. Noah says, Casey, you're looking good this morning.
Well, thank you, Noah.
That's very, very nice.
I appreciate that.
All right, look. There are a couple of things that occurred this weekend. You and I were talking about this off the air. I mean, there's a lot going on. You got baseballs getting rolling. You got the Masters, right? You got the NBA playoffs starting. So NCAA is over now. And let me preface this by saying I don't care whether you like Ohio State or Kentucky or you just have complete disdain for one or the other, if not both, because they are both easy to like because they win a lot. They're also easy to dislike because of their fan base. Let's be honest about it, okay? I mean, I'm an Ohio State fan, but there are a lot of Ohio State fans that just, I mean, it's over the top, way over the top. Kentucky basketball is the same thing. Having said that, what I watched this weekend from those two schools is it really is, if you're able to separate yourself away from it a little bit, not get wrapped up whether you're a fan or whether you're a hater. It really is amazing, the fan base of both of those schools. And I'm not here to suggest there aren't other schools that have great fan bases too, because there are. But I'm not sure there's a greater fan base when all is said and done. When you think about the size of the university, in Ohio State's case, they have alumni coast to coast, okay? Two things happened on Saturday. A network television broadcast the entire Ohio State spring football game. That was a 2.5-hour infomercial for Ohio State football. It was on Fox.
Yeah.
I mean, now think about that for a minute, okay? Again, take a step back. The Ohio State football game has one of the major networks televise its spring football game. They didn't televise it on national TV in Texas. They didn't do it at Alabama. They didn't do it in Georgia. They didn't do it in Michigan. They didn't do it at USC. Ohio State had a 2.5-hour infomercial and had 80,000 fans at the game. Now, there are other schools that will put in 80,000 for a spring game. Alabama does it regularly. But, I mean, are you kidding me? Think about if the Bengals play 4 scrimmage games, 3 of them now, in the preseason. They're lucky to get 40,000. Lucky to get that, right? If the Reds played an exhibition game against Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers, you wouldn't get 30,000. Maybe, right?
Right.
If you see in their spring football game, now I'm not comparing UC to Ohio State. That's unfair. But I'm just trying to put it in perspective. And then the other one is Kentucky. I mean, I couldn't believe what I saw and what I read about their press conference to introduce their new head coach, Mark Pope. Pope was a player at Kentucky. He transferred and played his final 2 years there. He was a hell of a player. Hard-nosed. He only averaged about 8 points, but 7 rebounds. Dirty, tough. I mean, not dirty player, but just tough. Got dirty, did all the little things you need to do to win, and he was part of a national championship team in 1996. So he's named the new head coach, leaving BYU, coming to Kentucky. They have a press conference. Most press conferences we watch, there are maybe 20 members of the media in a room, and then whoever the guy is you're introducing to do whatever he is, free agent player, coach, whatever you might want to say, right? They put in 21,000 people at Rupp Arena for a press conference. Yeah. Even Seth Davis, who's on CBS, you saw him during the NCAA tournament, he even acknowledged it on X over the weekend. Said, I've never seen anything like it in my life. This was a fan base that was really down on the program. They were really down on Cal. They were really upset that they didn't make a run for Danny Hurley, right, from Connecticut, that they didn't get Scott Drew from Baylor, and they were wondering who's going to be the coach at arguably the second most prominent basketball program in America is Kentucky after North Carolina. And you get 21,000 people for a press conference, and man, did they do it up. They brought up a bunch of guys back from that 96 team, Pope's teammates. They introduced them coming out of the tunnel. Look at this. This is sold out Rupp Arena. They had Derek Anderson, had all these guys. I mean, can you imagine the work of just rounding those guys up and say, hey, can you get in here? Now, a lot of them might live in Lexington or live in Kentucky. There's Pope. And, man, I got to tell you, I loved what the guy said, Pope. Look at him. Look at that scene for a press conference.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. And I tell you what, if you are a fan of any team, and all of us root for this team or that team, whoever it might be, and we get so tired of trust the process. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the same over and over and over again. Every one of them like clones. Well, Pope steps up there yesterday in the press conference, and he says, we are second to nobody at Kentucky. We're second in nothing. He said, my BYU team had the second best defensive efficiency in the country last year. Kentucky will be better. He said, my team shot the third best three-point shooting percentage at BYU last year. Kentucky should be better. He said, our job is to come in here and put banners up in this building, Final Fours and national championships, and win SEC tournaments, which a lot of people were really down on Cal because they thought he didn't think it much of the SEC tournament. I just can't believe it.
I can't either, Tom. I mean, it's those fan bases are so loyal, and when you say trust the process, those fan bases trust the process to a fault almost. It does not matter what they do. Any decision that is made at Ohio State, at Kentucky, is usually met with that sort of response, that sort of backing, that sort of hoorah.
Right.
And it's kind of neat, to be honest with you, that there's so many people that have almost a blind faith for their team making the right decision.
Well, they give them a reason to, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they've never really been led astray either.
No, it has been rare. And, I mean, you're talking about 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 years, whatever it is. I mean, Ohio State football's had one losing season in, like, the history of the program. Right?
Right.
So I and some of the guys in the chat here, and I've never understood this argument. Now, if we were living in California, all right, or you're living in Nags Head or Hilton Head or Siesta Key, right, where you got a beach, you got a lot going on, you got great weather pretty much year-round, and people like Justin jumped in. And we love Justin. I'm not picking on Justin. But he says those 80,000 people who went to the spring game, they need a hobby. And then somebody else said, in Lexington, there's nothing else to do. Well, what the hell is there to do around here that's any different than Lexington? And you can say, well, we got the Reds, got baseball, true, but they're out of town, right?
Got the Bengals, too.
Well, I know, but they're not playing now.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying, on if you're just going to take a single day last Saturday, and you get 20-something thousand at Rupp Arena, you get 80-something thousand at Ohio Stadium. And to come up with the reason that there's nothing else to do in those towns, there's plenty to do in those towns. And the weather was great all weekend in both of those towns. I just can't believe it. All right, before we get out of here today, because we got off the bench coming up here in about 25 minutes, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I know you're all in on this whole Bengals draft thing. It's 1 week from now, right? Next week?
It is
1
week from Thursday.
Okay. And this year it's in Detroit.
That's right.
That'll be fun. Is that at Ford Field?
No, I don't think it's at Ford Field.
It'll be outside somewhere where you can get more people.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'm sure it'll be great because they got great fan base, football fan base at Lions. I mean, that's the flip side, really, which might make the Lions fans even more amazing. They have given you nothing to get excited about forever. They've never been to a Super Bowl. And yet, they're fans, they just show up. Great fan base. Anyway, could you explain to me, and I'm being very serious about this because I don't understand this and maybe you can guide me. Okay? I keep hearing all of this talk about the Bengals wanting to draft maybe even in the first round a wide receiver. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Now, this isn't in theory. This is in reality. If the Bengals want to tag T. Higgins this year and again next year, they can do it.
That's correct.
Those are the rules, the way they're set up. Okay? So if you just said to yourself, okay, we're going to have T this year, and I love what he said over the weekend, that he's come to love Cincinnati and wants to be here. And I mean, he's a great dude. I mean, how do you not like that guy? But theoretically, you will have practicality. You will have Chase, you will have Higgins for at least 1 year, if not two more years together, right? You drafted your guy downtown, Charlie Brown, right, to be a wide receiver that you think can be good, Charlie Jones. You have Yoshi, right, who you think is going to develop into a player. Why, if the blueprint in your division and to winning games in your division has been defense, right?
Right.
Steelers, Ravens, and Browns, defense. All made the playoffs last year, right?
Yep.
And they have quarterbacks that, greater or lesser extent, but pretty solid in the division. If another year for Watson, we'll see. You got Russell Wilson coming back, Burrow coming back. I mean, it's pretty doggone good. And we know about Lamar, league MVP. Why would the Bengals draft a wide receiver in the first round?
Well, the only scenario I think that could happen is if one of the top 4 fall to them. And the top 4 are Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr.,
Well, Marvin Harrison Jr. ain't dropping down there. I mean,
I know. I'm just telling you what those scenarios are.
All right.
Romeo Dunes, and then the other guy that people kind of point and link to the Bengals is Brian Thomas Jr. And I just don't see the Bengals taking a receiver, to be honest with you, because I don't know if one's going to fall to them. If they were to, the idea of it is, one, they haven't really replaced Tyler Boyd. Yes. And if you want to say that Charlie Jones is that replacement, he didn't really show you a whole lot. He runs really fast east and west. We know that for sure. But he didn't really outperform guys
Yoshi was much better than him.
Right,
but in fairness to Charlie Jones, he was hurt a lot of the year.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But it's also a player that they took a swing on Charlie Jones, and it was a swing that they don't usually make on that type of profile for that guy. Older, his breakout in college didn't happen until super late.
Right.
Just those things I think make it to where they're not settled on Charlie Jones as the Tyler Boyd replacement. It was a nice swing, but it's not a for sure thing that they're willing to go with into this next year. And you look at the T. Higgins thing, maybe they don't want to tag him for that second year. They could theoretically.
They could,
but it's going to cost them next year probably like $27 million.
Well, I read over the weekend that they are going to have a ton of money next year available, a ton. Now they're going to pay Burrow a ton, and they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do on a long-term deal with Chase.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
But my goodness, I mean, I just, and look, these guys have forgotten more about football than I have. So maybe they maybe inside the building, they're looking around and they're going, kind of like the Dax Hill situation, right? And maybe Hill turns out to be, I'm not throwing in the towel on Hill. He's only his 3rd year in the league. But clearly they didn't like what they saw. They brought in 2 new safeties in the offseason.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Brought back Von Bell and they bring in Geno Stone. So maybe in the building, they know that for the long term, maybe Yoshi and Jones aren't the guy. Maybe. I'm not saying that for sure because I don't know. I thought Yoshi showed incredible promise for this team.
Yeah.
He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's an unbelievable athlete, he's got good hands. To me, that is a weapon as a slot receiver because he's a big, strong dude. Right?
Yep.
Now, maybe Gesicki fills that role this year. Right? Because he's going to be split off the line of scrimmage frequently. Almost always in a slot receiver kind of position as a tight end. All right. Anyway, it's going to be exciting, and I know you're going to be following, so we're going to talk a lot about this next week, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Casey, thank you.
No problem.
Everybody, thanks for being with us. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Don't forget, Off the Bench is coming up on Chatterbox Sports. You can find us on the Believe Network. Download us anywhere. Just search Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, and you're dialed in. Have a great Monday. We'll see you on Friday.
And now, the starting lineup of your favorite show. At producer, 5'11" from Blanchester, the Cow Killer, Casey McCollister. And comic engineer, standing at 4'8", the pride of the West Side, Elliot Rearing. And your host, weighing 150 pounds, soaking wet, from Hamilton, Ohio, Ace Fowler.
Welcome into a Monday edition of Off the Bench. I'm Trace Fowler, presented as always by United Dairy Farmers. Have the OG crew in here. We got Elliot, Casey, Reed. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Reed, you doing all right over there?
I'm doing great.
You look great.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Got some sun. It was a beautiful weekend. What a beautiful
You
weekend.
know it's going to be like 85 degrees today. You do know that.
I do.
All right. You're usually not a pants guy.
Well,
usually go with the shorts.
listen, if the one thing that people have always said about me is how professional I am,
Right.
And shorts just aren't very professional, so
Nah.
that's why I'm wearing pants, because I'm a professional.
That's why I'm wearing pants as well.
We're all
You went to an AJR concert.
We're all wearing pants.
Could you give us a quick rundown? Where was this concert at?
It was in Indy. It was in Indy at the Pacers Arena.
It was in Indy.
Correct.
That almost gave you a bugaboo right there. I heard that.
It gave me a lot of pressure there to execute, and I didn't really.
Yeah.
So that's all that. But it was a great concert. I had a lot of fun. Me and my dad went. Very good time.
I seen the video that you took, which was really cool. But a quick question: was it like in a theater? Like what was the? Was that an arena?
Yeah,
It was an Regent show.
It was the Pacers Arena.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So they went up to the third deck, performed a little song. It was great. Again, they're my favorite band. I'll be buying tickets to see them in Cincinnati when they come. So I'll see it twice. That's how good that show was. Your kids would genuinely like it. Your kids would love it because what they do with all the graphics and all they do, they have like you know how the NBA a while ago started doing that 3D stuff on the court before games.
Yes.
They essentially use that during the
that's cool.
show. So it's very cool.
That is cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, well, a quick thing about AJR. Obviously, the first time I'd ever heard about AJR, and people have already heard the story before, was when we had planned to go see the Imagine Dragons, and people have heard that story before, so I don't want to regurgitate it. But just the other day, my oldest son was like, "Hey, you remember that guy that we had seen before the Imagine Dragons concert?
Yeah.
The fill-in. It's almost like they threw this poor kid to the wolves. They're like, hey, go
Yeah.
perform." Go performing in front of this huge crowd. You don't have a band with you or anything like that, but you can sing. Just start ripping the vocals, and maybe they'll all enjoy themselves. Benson Boone, is that it?
That's correct.
And I know I'm not
Very
much.
famous.
I'm a very casual.
Famous.
Turns out he's really big now.
Yeah, very big.
Turns out that he's famous.
I think immediately after that is when that song started to go
Right.
a little bit viral. The one that's trending all over the
Yeah,
world
we
now.
put him on the map, is what Summer's saying.
That's what Summer's saying.
Beautiful
Right.
Things.
Beautiful things.
That's the song name. It's a good song.
Yes.
Kid
I
at-
just remember all the girls, the
Yeah.
college age girls around us. Rightfully so. They were all like pulling out their Spotify phone or their phones and opening up Spotify, and they were hitting the plus button.
Mm-hmm.
I've literally seen that all over around me, and I was just like, the times have changed. This is like, that's the thing now. If you could just get people to add you to their Spotify,
That's right.
It just all adds up, and over time, I guess you become famous. So shout out to him. Really, before I get to Casey and his soccer weekend. Really quickly, do you think record labels are more like? Do you think at this point in music that record labels like propel people to stardom? Because how did he become somebody that no one really knew about to stardom? Was it socials, or do you have any idea?
All socials. I'm pretty sure. He went on American Idol.
Yes.
And then famously turned down American Idol after he advanced. So he got to the next round and then said, "Nah, I'm good." And then he went on TikTok and started blowing up there. TikTok is really what does it. TikTok does. I don't know. So there's been a song trending on my TikTok for the past couple weeks. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the show Stranger Things or heard of the show Stranger Things?
I've heard of it. Yes, I've not seen it.
So there's a guy on that show. His name is Kiri. Joe Kiri is his name.
Okay.
And he's an actor.
Back in Chicago.
Yeah. So
I feel it.
he has a stage persona, and it's called Joe. DJO is his stage persona. He wears like a wig, so nobody knows he's the guy from Stranger Things. He had a song that he made in 2022, just a song, and obviously it never blew up or anything. He's just some actor trying to make some music.
Yeah.
This year, it's blown up. It's blown up completely, and that's all on the back of TikTok. TikTok is just changing the music industry.
I looked it up. I just looked up Benson Boone.
Yeah.
Benson Boone had a song that came out 2 years ago that is actually more popular than the song that is currently going viral right now. Never heard of him before that song went viral right now. So he's been big for a while. Benson Boone has.
Yeah, I mean it's all relative. Obviously, you have folks that I'm sure if Kurt Casale is walking down the streets of Nashville, Tennessee right now, no one would probably have a clue who he is.
No.
But some would say if he walked down the city of Cincinnati, some would probably have no clue. I don't know why Kurt Casale deserved the stray shots right there
stray.
at the
It
beginning
was a
of the show.
He came to the Reds twice.
Yeah.
Came to the Reds twice.
Right. They loved him so much he came back again.
Yeah. And then he so lost.
Casey, did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, I had a good weekend. I wrote a tweet out about this.
You wrote a tweet?
Yeah, I tweeted out something
plays.
on X.com. And
Okay.
I think this might be one of my favorite times of the year because I get
Really?
baseball all weekend.
Wow.
I get FC, and the weather's starting to change. It's starting to get better. I'm really enjoying this time of the year.
You bring up an excellent point. There is something about just the lifestyle that you get to live in this part of the country when the weather turns and you start to just fathom all the things that you could possibly do outside. You're not hunkered down. It's just such a glorious thing. And I'll be honest, I maybe I shouldn't say this in front of everyone that I work with, but if I live in Ohio for the rest of my life, folks, and I love Ohio, I have no disrespect to Ohio, but if I'm living in Ohio for the rest of my life, I've done something wrong. Because every time it gets nice out like this, I'm like, you could live somewhere.
Do you wanna
where
be
this is kind of the norm?
Yeah,
like
every
you're not begging for these days. 80 degrees, 85 degrees. Some think that's hot. I think it's perfect. I'm not a guy that's built for the cold. If you didn't know,
I knew it.
So Arizona has had put something in my brain. Now, it's a little expensive out there. And I've come to realize that I think
Expensive
the In-N-Out
everywhere,
Burger place that we went to that everybody gives rave reviews for,
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason that it gets rave reviews isn't so much how great the burger is, but it is very affordable out there at least. So, you're going to add something?
Two things. I was going to say, would you want to be a snowbird or do you want to live somewhere warm full time?
See,
Because I love the summers up here. I think we have great summers up here. So I think I would snowbird it.
Snowbird seems like a retiring thing, right? It seems like you're just you're done.
Or if you're just, or you can run a company remote.
Yeah, and that
old
seems
T
relatively, I don't want to say difficult, but that seems relatively difficult. Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe not. But I would just openly admit out loud that if I am enduring cold weather anywhere past the age of 50, I'm a little upset at myself, if we're being honest.
I also recently came across something on my social feed that said that Midwesterners and East Coasters and people that live in the North work harder.
Ooh.
Work harder
I think that's
than
true.
people that live in warm areas, because what we do is when it's gets cold, we just grind, right? You just work hard throughout the entire winter, and then it's warm, and then you just get it's almost like school, right?
Right.
If you live here in Hamilton, it gets nice out. People just wander. You go to the park, people are just out wandering around because we're like, we got to be outside. We only get 3-4 months of this. Let's get the most. Let's make the most out of it.
Or they're just trying to work really hard so they can leave.
That's
Yeah,
it.
go
that's
to
a
the
fair point. I know this is a very serious sports talk
Very
show, and
serious
I
sports
could
talk
honestly
show.
spend the whole segment here just having a fun debate on. Do you ever think people that come up from the South or from the West who visit this part of the country, do you ever think they think about this part of the country like we did Kansas when we drove through it?
No.
And you've been to Kansas
Oh, yeah,
before.
100.
They
Oh,
have.
really?
They have to
Oh,
think.
yeah.
I don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's as bad as
they
Kansas,
think.
though.
They think of Ohio like we think of Kansas.
You always punch down, right? And that's what I try to refrain from doing from time to time. But you go through Kansas, you're like, who the heck lives here? Well, people that live in New York City, people that live in Miami or Los Angeles, they come to Ohio and they see cornfields and stuff like that. They're like, who the hell lives here? Even though this is it's the 7th most populated state. This is a pretty populated state. This is an important state
Yeah.
in the union.
I've driven through a lot of states. A lot of them were on that road trip we just took. And I say this with a lot of love and with a lot of respect. The state of Kansas is worthless. I mean, that's a garbage state. Whoever concocted that one up really, really dropped the ball.
Really good D2 college baseball team out there.
I'm sure they have a lot of them. It's just empty fields and nothing. Just nothing. The speed limit was 95 miles an hour, and they just want you to get to wherever you have to go as fast as possible so you don't have to remember what you just drove through. That's really the goal of Kansas. And God bless them, God love them. That's how they all live down there and have your fun. But that's the last time I'll ever visit Kansas.
All right. As we've talked about before, Off the Bench is a sports talk show. We usually center things around the Southwest Ohio area. And we will do that. But before we get to all that, there were headlines over the weekend. We have Masters. We'll have a discussion perhaps on what that was like for those that watched it for the very first time. I hate to say it, but it was probably boring. We have the Reds.
Oh!
They play the Mariners. You had mentioned the Mariners. They've not won a series all year long. I love to hear that. It's the last thing I want to hear heading into Seattle. We then have the Bengals, T. Higgins, and Mr. Jefferson just keep popping up, man. This is like at this point Finding Waldo. It's just you think you found it, and then you realize that you didn't really find it. You got to go to the next page and do it all over again. This is like Groundhog Day.
Or you could look at it like you see a little bit of smoke. You're like, is something burning over there? Is something burning? And then you're like, what? Like, no, that's impossible.
That's just coming from Kentucky. That's the white smoke of Mark Pope.
That's right. They elected in the new pope. But you just keep going like, there's some smoke over there. It smells like a fire. Are we sure? I don't know. Maybe for the first time ever, I'm starting to believe.
I was at the concert and I wasn't able to watch the Reds or wasn't able to hear anything of the news, whatever happened that day in Cincinnati sports. I get in my car, we're starting to drive home, and I see a bunch of tweets from Casey. And it's just like all Justin Jefferson propaganda. He's coming here. I couldn't believe it. I was wrong. He's here. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I check on Twitter. I'm like, Justin Jefferson Bengals, Justin Jefferson, and I get nothing. The only person tweeting about it is you. I'm getting one tweet from one guy, and it's popping up my feed. I'm like, what's going on? He's not coming to the Bengals.
Joe Goodberry tweeted out Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow highlights on a random Friday.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. There was a lot of – it was more than just me. I was posting random highlights.
I don't follow any of the
Justin
other
Jefferson,
Bengals people
but
except it was like you, Reed, and Drew Garrison. That's it.
I don't
That's
know.
the only Bengals people I follow.
This thing just keeps popping up.
Bengalian, maybe.
This thing just keeps popping up. To me, if it popped up once and it died, that's probably rumor. But if it keeps coming back, why does it keep coming back? Why does this thing keep circulating? I don't know. The smoke might be from a fire that just got put out, but there is definitely some smoke somewhere.
I'll tell you right now, Reed, you're going to have one heck of a clip on your hands if this ever ends up coming a thing, you know.
Well, I very much – I think I tweeted something out about, like, I have never once disparaged the idea that Justin Jefferson's coming to the Cincinnati Bengals. And if you go look at that tweet, I bring up some that clip. I bring up some concerns about how it all happens, like how the money makes sense and stuff like this. Here's what I'll say very briefly about if Justin Jefferson does come to the Bengals.
Sure.
It seems a little bit like it's just like, hey, just go ahead and book the vacation. Who cares how you pay for it? Like we'll figure it out on the back end. We'll stay afloat. We won't have to sell the house or anything like that. Just go ahead and book it. We'll see what happens.
What's more likely, the Reds making the postseason this year or Justin Jefferson coming to the Bengals?
Wow. That's a good poll question of the day. Maybe we'll do that when we come back here on 1410 Wing AM. All right, we are back from a very, very serious sports segment we just did on 1410 Wing AM, and I'm sure the folks of Dayton are either one turning the station to another one, or they've come to realize that maybe this show's just fun.
Yeah,
from time to time, it's just fun. If you want to listen to NBA talk, you want to listen to the legacy of LeBron James, if you want to listen to what Bronny James possibly is going to get drafted by, you can head to that other station right now if you'd like. But I got news for you. On my way in, from time to time, I try to do a little cheat code. I turn on the local radio, you know, the local sports talk. I'm like, what are these guys talking about that maybe I could get some tips from? And sure enough, here they are. They're talking about the association, what teams could possibly sneak their way into the postseason, and LeBron's legacy, and if he's almost done. I'm like, we're still talking about LeBron's legacy?
We have to.
What are we doing? on Sports Talk.
Once I get to that point in my headlines, you guys will love it. I remember when we were driving through the country. We get to Las Vegas.
Yes.
And we were taking some Ubers places or Lyfts, no free ads to any of those businesses I mentioned.
Yes.
And we get in the car, and the guy puts on Las Vegas Sports Talk Radio.
He does, yes.
And Trace keeps berating this poor Uber driver. He's like, "Why do you listen to this?" He's like, "Oh, well, sometimes there's good discourse." And every 5 minutes, Trace would look over and be like, "This is the worst thing I've ever heard." I mean, every time I listen to this guy, he's making nonsensical points. And he was kind of right. So that's what sports talk is. It's nonsense.
Yeah. He literally just said, I kind of like listening to this because I just want them to relatively argue about something. It didn't matter what it was. He just wanted to be entertained. And I think that's the goal of really sports talk in general is entertain folks. It just seems like the national radio from time to time, they lose their way.
They do.
It's like you can entertain folks a different way perhaps from time to time. You don't have to always bring up LeBron James. But they can do what they wish.
It's a divisive thing. It's a
agree.
divisive thing.
Let's can I do my headlines real quick?
I was getting ready to throw it over to you.
All right. Well, I'm going to do my headlines.
Headlines,
That sounds
Elliot.
good. We'll start in Major League Baseball in the Cincinnati Redlegs. And that's how many words, Casey? Redlegs?
It's just one.
That's correct. Reds went 11-4 yesterday to finish off their sweep of the White Sox. Ashcraft went 5 2/3, striking out 8. He only gave up a run. He probably could have finished it, but he was at like 110 pitches when they pulled him. So shout out to Graham Ashcraft. CES, Nick Martini both had multi-hit games, both having home runs as well. Ellie De La Cruz did not reach base for the first time yet. That was the very first time this season he didn't reach base. That's absolutely preposterous.
By the hype.
By the hype. That's right, Reed. I saw you had a tweet about Ellie yesterday.
Yep.
That's good. Every time Reed tweets about the Reds, I really like it a whole lot. Will Benson, he reached 5 times, 4 walks yesterday. That was like an Elliott Rearing special in grade school. I'd never get hits, but I'd always get walks. I'd draw every walk in the world. I had a small strike zone. Jake Fraley, he hadn't drawn a walk all year. He drew 2 yesterday, added 2 base hits on top of that. He's hitting .424 for the season. They take on the Mariners tonight. Again, I mentioned it. They have not won a season or a series this season. We'll talk about that later on. The Reds are still in 4th place in the division. They have some separation from the Cardinals. The Brewers are in 1st, followed by the Pirates and the Cubs. Reds are a game and a half out of 1st place. Some other scores. Padres beat the Dodgers last night. Sunday Night Baseball 6-3. I tried to watch it. I tried to watch like 3 innings of it, and I don't get it. It doesn't get it. I can't do it. I love baseball. Can't watch anything else other than the Reds. Mariners.
Sounds like you don't love baseball.
Huh?
Sounds like you don't love baseball.
I love it. Mariners, they fall to the Cubs. They're now 6-10. They lost to the Cubs 3-2. Diamondbacks, they improved to 500 after shutting out the Cardinals. The Athletics, the Sacramento Athletics, have won 6 of their last 8 and have won 3 consecutive series. How about that? They beat the Nationals 7-6. Pirates beat the Phillies, and the Brewers fell to the Orioles. That's pretty much it on notable stuff. I saw the Yankees. Casey, can you pull the Nestor Cortez thing up real quick? And this is from my baseball experts over here. I don't know what the score was. I'm sure the Yankees won. And that's genuinely without me knowing. So the Guardians could have won this. Nestor Cortez was pitching yesterday. This was a serious... How is this not a balk? In what world is that not a balk? That wasn't a Major League game. Can you do the fake throw and then go back into another throw?
Yeah, so balks, so you know this, are to when you're deceiving the base runner. The job of a pitcher is to deceive a batter. So when there's no one on base, you can still balk if you do the things like you drop the ball or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not. I mean, if you're in the motion, yeah, sure, you can do it. You can do what you want.
That's absurd.
You're not a big fan of that, I'm assuming?
You can do a fake pitch right before your real pitch in the same motion?
As long as you keep your motion and you don't start and stop, yeah.
Have you ever seen the Japanese guy that threw it behind his back?
No.
I'll find the clip, but he does the old like Warren Spahn big windup, and when he turns around like Hideo Nomo, he flings it behind his back, then follows through like he threw. What? You like that Hideo Nomo reference?
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming today.
Right. He threw it behind his back, and then he followed through like it was a normal pitch, and it was in there for a strike. Just lobbed it in there for a nice little strike.
Yeah.
I do think it's a fair ask of whether or not you're towing the line on kind of the moral integrity of the game, and I don't know. I would venture to say if he continues to do this and have success doing it, they will change the rule.
Major League Baseball not having any moral integrity? I'm shocked. NBA.
Is that moral?
Yeah, that's you can't. That's not a serious thing. You can't do that.
Nestor Cortez has done this for
years.
years.
He's done the thing where he's done the
Like
little Johnny
rocks
Cueto
and double
Johnny
kicks
Johnny
and
Cueto
stuff
does
like
that too.
Marcus
but
Stroman
I've never
does it.
seen anybody fake out with a fake pitch. What are we doing here? That's a
Also, if
joke.
you're a major league hitter and you think a dude's seriously throwing and he's doing a little cat paw,
No, but
My question more or less is would you want that to be a part of the game or not? Because like if let's just say hypothetically it actually does work, like it's starting to actually garner some type of attention from other arms. The next thing you know, let's say there's a epidemic of it. And there's half the leagues doing that now.
I don't.
Would you be upset that that's what the game of baseball has turned into, or do you think they should change the rules?
I don't think it's a slippery. Like, do you want to do the slippery
I'm
slope
throwing out the
argument?
I'm
I don't
asking-
care. Like the pitcher's job is to deceive hitters and to get them out.
All right, so
and if
you-
that helps, that's okay.
So you don't care if half the league's doing that, basically.
I mean, we know
All
that's
right.
a joke, right? We can all admit that's a joke. What he just did. Up there.
Clearly, he doesn't think it's a joke.
Well,
I'd say that it's very much a joke. I would like to think that if that becomes a trend, then Major League Baseball finds a way just to get rid of that.
Yeah, I would hope so. NBA news. The Rockets. Casey, I did send you this one real quick. The Rockets were up by 8 points with 4 minutes left when Boban, not going to try to pronounce his last name, when Boban came to the free throw line, if he missed the free throw, the entire arena got free chicken.
Yeah, they got
That's
some nuggies.
Some nuggets. This is what I've been told. So Boban, again, it's important to know the Rockets are safely out of the postseason. This game meant nothing to them, and they were winning. He goes up to the free throw line here, says that he's aware of this nugget thing, getting the crowd pumped up, and then what's he going to do here? He is going to intentionally miss a free throw to give an entire arena nuggets. Look at this guy.
Yeah, this is a big league move by him. Now, I got a question for you. Do you think that we talk about the moral integrity of the game?
Yeah.
What seems to be all too far often on this show. We just did it a second ago. I'll ask and pose the same question. Do you think that is some semblance of the same idea of what they're trying to get out of the game via gambling? You just don't want players to be doing things outside the norm for the benefit of others and or yourself.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. If there was any gambling lines on his points that you missed because of that, that's brutal. Or the spread, that's brutal. But that's just the way gambling goes. If you get part of gambling is the risk, and that is most definitely a risk. I think that's fun. The Rockets, there's no moral boundaries crossed there. Both the one team was in, the Clippers were already in, the Rockets are not in. So.
How close are we to getting to a point in society where the gambling aspect kind of wears itself off and it just becomes a part of the norm and it's not really talked about at length all the time? Do you think we ever get to that point? I think we're getting closer and closer. You get like 5 years from now, I
don't
feel
know
like
how
it's just
soon
going to
it
be
is.
like it's just going to be a way of the past.
But we've talked about this before that I think you actually like opened my mind to this, which was the idea that the reason that we looked down on sports gambling is because it was illegal for so long, and like the way you did it was you went to a seedy bar and you had a deal in cash, and
Right.
you're messing with a guy that you probably shouldn't be hanging out with, and yeah, now it's legal, so it's a lot safer. It's a lot, and our parents specifically imagine sports gambling as that, right? You're driving to the dive bar and you're given a paper bag full of cash, or you're getting a paper bag full of cash.
Yeah.
So that's why they think of it so poorly. Eventually, it just becomes a part of society.
Shout out dive bar.
Shout out. So the playoffs in the NBA are set as well. It's the play-in games. They start tomorrow night and Wednesday. They go into Wednesday. It's the 7 and 8, and then the 9 and the 10 games. I think this is kind of silly by the NBA to allow legit 75% of your teams in the postseason, but nonetheless, they're going to do it. The Lakers will be taking on New Orleans, and Golden State is heading to Sacramento. Those are the two games tomorrow night. Wednesday, the Heat will take on the 76ers, and the Hawks will play the Bulls.
These are the playing games?
Playing games.
All right. As much as I give the NBA kind of I joke about how many teams make the postseason, you know, it's like it's literally a laughable number when you kind of look at the league.
Yeah, it's 20 out of 30.
But you know what? From an entertainment standpoint, it is like I love the idea and the concept of the play-in game. Like if you're the higher seed and you lose 2 games in a row to lower level team or lower seeded teams, you can kind of justify the idea of being like, all right, maybe we didn't deserve to be in the postseason.
Does basketball as a whole, both the NCAA and the NBA, because of how big their tournaments are and how much we like their tournaments, have they belittled their regular season by doing so?
100% they did. But the only thing that you'd have to ask yourself is how many diehards are going to watch regardless, right? So then you have to ask yourself, how do you pull in the casual fan? And I think that most casual fans prefer to watch games when it matters the most, which is going to be the quote-unquote postseason. And the only issue that I'd have would be like, how many folks right now watch Major League Baseball when there was only 6 teams in, or whatever it was. At one point, you could argue it was incredibly difficult to get into the postseason for the Major League teams. I don't think there's that many people watch the postseason differently, or excuse me, the regular season differently anyways. So you could make the case that it's actually just better to make your tournament include more teams, make it more fun towards the end of the year, make the regular season, for lack of a better term, not matter as much.
I agree, and I think we can all agree that the Warriors, who are the last team to make it in the Western Conference, championship pedigree, 10 games over 500, they should be. It's better for the sport than 100%. Playing in the postseason.
It's better for the sport if Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani's Angels, which again they were abysmal, but if they got a chance just to even be in some semblance of a playoff, it's better for the sport. Yeah,
I agree. Masters. We talked about it. Scottie Scheffler, he cruised to his second Masters title. He was minus 11 under for the entire tournament. Ludvig Oberg came in second place. Homa, Morikawa, and Tommy Fleetwood finished in a tie for third. A fun story about Tommy Fleetwood, Casey Rue. Tommy Fleetwood changed his caddy for this tournament. It was he used a caddy specifically for Augusta National. This guy worked at Augusta, and he used him for this tournament. It's Tommy's lowest score ever at a major. Ever at Augusta. So how about that for Tommy Fleetwood using this caddy? What's his name there, Casey? It's
Gary Moore.
Yeah, that guy. Whoever that guy is, shout out to him. Just a random caddy at the place, and he's like, yeah, I'll use you. Okay. So shout out to Tommy Fleetwood. Bengals. We already mentioned it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I had a free bet, so I bet on golf for the first time in my life this weekend. Masters. Second round, I bet Cam Young.
Oh,
top 10.
Nice.
Top 10. It was a $20 bet to win like $60. Because of dead heat reduction, it was like a 9-way tie for 8th. So guess how much I got paid out for that bet? On a $20 free bet.
$21.
If I would have bet real cash, I would have brought back $22. But because it was a free bet, I won $2.
Nice.
Yeah, the dead heat stuff's brutal. Bengals. T. Higgins says he intends to play for the Bengals, and the Bengals say they are not going to trade him. Regarding this morning in a presser, I'm sure we'll have some other nuggets that come from that presser as well. Zach Taylor says, I won't speculate who's going to be here for the voluntary program. We will keep everything internal. So there you go. FCC, Casey, the Orange and Blue have dropped a second game in a row, losing yet again by a score of 2-1. Shout out to Kuba. He scored the lone goal for the Orange and Blue.
Yeah, that's just tough. I mean, it was tied 1-1, and you thought, man, maybe we can spark something here, get a little offense going, and then they immediately give up a goal like 2 minutes later.
Yeah,
it was tough.
That's tough. Shout out to FCC. Good news is that season literally goes on forever, so they'll have a lot of chances to make up for it. Kentucky, I said this to Casey as well. Big Blue Nation welcomed their new coach, Coach Pope. And I'm not going to lie, I'll give Kentucky fans some props. It was very cool to see an entire arena packed to the rafters to welcome in this new era of Kentucky basketball. We're going to show the little visual here. It's pretty cool. So if you're on the radio, just imagine the entire arena completely sold out to not watch a game, but to watch the new coach say hello to everybody. So shout out to them. Shout out to Kentucky. Hopefully it works. It's a new, fresh start, and that's all that matters.
Speaking of that really fast.
Yeah, real quick.
Are you about to hit me with a WNBA?
I was.
Oh, I must digress. Go ahead.
WNBA draft tonight at 7:30.
Who do you think is number one?
Brittany Griner. The draft is tonight at 7:30. Caitlin Clark is expected to get drafted by the Fever, who do have the first overall pick.
Are the Fever from Indiana?
That's right. Yes.
We gonna watch Caitlin Clark at that's our local team.
Yeah.
Look at us, guys. Let's get fired up. Caitlin Clark to our local WNBA team. Come on.
How much tickets do you think are you willing to pay? Like if it's like 200, you go to pay to see Caitlin?
Caitlin Clark perform in the WNBA?
Yeah.
The limit does not exist.
Well, that's it. I think we should take a break.
I was going to ask really quickly. Maybe we'll do this right after the break. I know we have some very serious sports talk. The Masters. But I have a question. If you were Reed Sheppard and you were adored, loved, beloved, you grew up your whole life wanting to be a Kentucky Wildcat, and you have what is staring in front of you, the opportunity to head to the NBA draft as a lottery pick and more likely a top 10 pick in the NBA draft, what would you do? We'll find out what the guys think just after this on 1410 Wing AM. Welcome back into Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Trace Fowler. Casey, Elliott, Reed, they are in the house. And I had a question right before we went to break here, gentlemen, that I was pondering myself yesterday as a legitimate arena that came to watch a man speak. You have said it yourself. They did not come to watch somebody play basketball. They came to watch someone speak who's going to be the head coach of their basketball team. And he had made a little bit of a jab, maybe a pun would be the right appropriate term, that he said, we as coaches are to be shepherds. And he kind of gave that little smirk to let the arena know, yes, I meant to use the term shepherd. That's because Reed Sheppard obviously came in as a freshman last year, one of the best players in the country. For all intents and purposes, put Kentucky on his back a few games last year, and he went out not in the way in which Reed Sheppard would have liked. He struggled mightily in the game in which they had lost to Oakland, and you wonder to yourself, if you were in that position, Reed Sheppard, to where your entire life, he grew up wanting to be a Kentucky Wildcat, and you know, some guys, I mentioned this before, they dream, their goal is obviously go to the NBA. Not that they don't care about college basketball, but it certainly is not one of the priorities to them to go to a certain school in college and then ultimately have some type of historical moment at that school. Their goal is to go to the NBA. It's just a byproduct of having to get there. So, you know what? They say I have to go to college for 1 year. I'm going to go to whatever college I can get the most in NIL, which is their right, and then they move on to the NBA. Reed Sheppard, that's not the case. Reed Sheppard's obviously father. He has a relationship with Mark Pope, and I wonder if you think that they even have a chance, or is this the same old that you hear every single year? Oh, there's a chance they come back. There's a chance they come back, but then reality sets in. You see this in college football from time to time. You certainly see it in college basketball, and I guess you ask yourself, do you even consider coming back?
Nope. I mean, you got to have a pretty big ego to want to be like that beloved. Like, I don't know. I'm just going to the NBA. I'm going to play the sport that I've wanted to play. My goal has always been to go to the NBA. I know he's still going to get the chance to do that, even if he goes back to UK. But, you know, your draft stock's incredibly high. This is a pretty poor draft by all standards that I've heard. So, yeah, you got a chance to be a lottery pick, top 10 pick more than likely. I don't know. But I go to the NBA. I don't think about it.
Well, I guess to push back on you a little bit here, I would say that, you know, if Reed Sheppard would have went out in any other fashion, I would tend to agree with what you're saying. You got to strike while the iron's hot. There's no guarantee. First of all, NBA draft classes vary significantly from year to year, right? There's only a select few that get drafted to go to the NBA. This year, many consider it to be a down year. Next year, many consider it to be more of a fruitful year, or that there will be better depth. So he might not be as high of a pick next year, even if he performs relatively the same way as he would this year. The only hesitation I have in saying all that is you have someone that, from an NIL perspective, is going to get paid handsomely if he decides to come back. You double down on the fact that he's grown up loving Kentucky basketball his entire life. And then the thing that the cherry on top, per se, is that you ended your career. Reed Sheppard ended his career in almost the worst way you can possibly end it. And yeah, some would say maybe you lose in the championship game. That might be more enticing to come back. But you lose in the very first round. This program is they're not at the bottom, obviously, of where they've been in the past, but they're down a little bit. Reed Sheppard could be, for lack of a better term, a savior to that program and be one of the all-time legends within this, what you had seen, cult-like fandom. And I say that with respect. I don't mean that as a negative thing, but it's something to be a legend in Kentucky basketball. it's another thing to be a legend, with all due respect to Boston College basketball or something of those likes. It's two completely different things. And I would think that Reed Sheppard would at least entertain the idea to come back based off the fact that he laid a goose egg in his final game at Kentucky, and he grew up his whole entire life wanting to be a Wildcat.
I mean, it's the only thing it comes down to is dollars and cents. If he knows he can get paid a decent amount this year at Kentucky, he'll come back. And I do think there is something to what you're saying, and being the big fish in a little tiny pond, being the king of the castle here at Kentucky. I do think there is something to that. The NBA, I don't know how many lottery picks work out right away, especially. Probably not many, I'd say. If you go back over the past several drafts, I don't think there's been a ton of talent outside the first couple of picks that have been excellent NBA talent. If you're able to be that good, sure, the money in the NBA is far better, and that's what you'll do. But it's literally about money. And if you want to talk about legacy, I'd argue that the legacy at Kentucky that he can make, sure, it is probably going to be more than what he does in the NBA.
I would stay, personally. I would stay.
I don't think I think very seldomly do athletes want to be known for a college. Think about all the great athletes that make their waves professionally. You almost kind of forget where they went, or you don't think about their college career because their professional career is longer. It has more eyeballs on it. Like Reed Sheppard, if he is remembered as a Kentucky Wildcat, means that he probably wasn't a very good professional. Right? And I think that's Reed Sheppard's end goal. And by the way, I looked at a couple mock drafts, NBA mock drafts. He's listed as the 3rd pick in one, the 4th pick in another, and an 8th pick in the 3 drafts that I looked at. So we're looking at a potential top 5 pick here. And like I said, although he grew up in Kentucky, although he grew up in Big Blue Nation, although he's already gotten the claim and everything like that, I don't think Reed Sheppard wants to be. I think when his career is done, he wants to be remembered as a phenomenal professional player, not this guy that took Kentucky Wildcats back to prominence.
I'm the one that wants to eat his cake and eat have your cake and eat it too. I think that Reed Sheppard could possibly do that here if he comes back to Kentucky for one more year, has a great season, and then he heads off to the NBA and he's just 1 year removed from what he otherwise would have had. What's the difference? And again, if he has success in the NBA, what's the difference between a 14-year NBA career and a 15-year NBA career? And on top of that, you get the love, and he's always going to be loved to a certain extent in Kentucky. But if he decides to come back, even coming back shows the commitment he has for something that I think puts him on a pedestal that not many would have in Big Blue Nation. All right, you had mentioned it before here from the headlines. Scottie Scheffler won,
That's right.
and I don't want to say in the most boring fashion humanly possible.
Boring.
But listen, the guy's just so much better than everybody right now that ultimately it's just going to require him to not play well. He's going to have to struggle, because if it's best on best, Scottie Scheffler's going to win pretty much. I don't want to say 9 times out of 10 because I think that's lying. I think it's 10 times out of 10. So he's the closest thing in golf to Tiger Woods since Tiger Woods. Speaking of the Masters, here as we kind of wrap up this segment, and I know that many people probably could care less talking about the nuances of the game or golf and how it went down and certain holes and the way. But I do think that there was one thing that was really, really neat and cool. There was an amateur, obviously Shipley, who was low amateur. For those that don't know, the Masters always recognizes the low amateur in Butler's cabin, and Shipley's a guy that was the low am, and he's the only one that got to make the cut. So he was going to win on Friday evening. He knew that he was going to win the low am. He could have played the worst golf in his entire life the next 2 days. It doesn't matter. He's the only amateur that made the cut. He wins low am. But what happened on Sunday, for those that did not see, was a pretty cool thing. Shipley decided that he was going to surprise his high school buddy that he'd played golf with his whole life, that he was going to let him caddy for him in Augusta. So you have a 20-year-old kid, basically, walking around with another 20-year-old kid, just having the time of their life. And then on top of that, I don't know if you've seen this, but on Sunday, who did they get paired up with? None other than Tiger Woods.
El Tigre.
I could not imagine being 20 years old. I mean, we're talking... Think about how young that is, first and foremost. To then turn around and be like, hey, not only are you going to get to carry my bag around a place in which very, very few people even get a chance to walk the grounds of, let alone be inside the ropes. I'm talking about just be there in general. Not only do you get to do that, but then on Sunday, you're legitimately going to have conversations, walk step for step with the greatest player of what many people would argue of all time. I don't want to get in that debate today about Jack Nicklson and Tiger. But I would just say if he's not the greatest of all time, he's one of the greatest of all times, and he's the most influential golfer of our lifetime. And maybe, I don't even think that's a maybe, the most influential golfer of all time. To get a chance to do that is absurd.
I did like how in the they always have the low-am there for the green jacket ceremony, which is it's just silly. It's just a silly thing to do because they always have to just stand there and awkwardly walk off the camera before they crown and put the jacket on whoever just won the tournament. And he was giving the camera some weird side eye I saw, very funny. But yeah, if you want to say like I've competed in the Masters, I didn't win it, and it's whatever. You played at the most prestigious golf course in the country, maybe in the world. You were with the greatest golfer of all time, and there were clips of him avidly talking with Tiger, walking down the fairway. Like Tiger was pretty aware of what was happening. Tiger was playing terribly for that entire last 2 days. It was terrible. But and shout out to me, I bet on Neil Shipley to beat Tiger head to head on that plus 255, plus 255. But yeah, that's the deal of a lifetime. That he might as well take every picture, every camera angle that was cut to those two, and frame them all because you will never experience anything like that. He won the Masters. Neil Shipley won the Masters because of the experience he had.
Do you think that CBS? This is basically the moral integrity show of the century we've gotten ourselves into now. Because I'm going to ask another one. You have Cam Smith. A guy that's one of the best golfers in the world, no doubt, went to live. CBS has a contract with the PGA Tour, though. So do you have a problem with the fact they did not show one single shot of Cam Smith yesterday when he literally finished 5th in the Masters?
They were showing him a little bit. They wouldn't show Patrick Reed. There was a point where Patrick Reed was like close to finishing top 10. And Patrick Reed got, I think, 2 shots. Cam Smith would get some of the highlights shown of him. So, but yeah, the live golfers knew what they were going to do when they all wore their live golf shirts at the Masters. Do you see that? Every single one of them was wearing their live golf.
What are they supposed to wear?
Well, I mean, like, I don't know. I think Brooks Koepka was the only one who didn't wear anything on Sunday. It was just a Nike shirt.
Well, that's because he's still sponsored by Nike. I think a lot of these guys lost their sponsorships when they decided to go to live because there was obviously the fear of what the repercussions would be for the sponsors if they did not decide to do that.
Do you think there was a meeting? Do you think the Shark told all these guys like, "Hey, everybody's wearing their team shirts at the Masters. We're representing." Do you think that was on the text chain? Because every one of them did it.
I do. I 100% think that CBS decided that they were going to do their very best, if at all possible, to not show any of those guys. And I don't blame them because ultimately that's their product, right? The PGA Tour is what they paid all of the TV rights, all the money in the world they paid to try to make sure that they had the television broadcast rights for. So can you blame CBS for wanting to do that? I can't blame them. But even Jim Nantz, he got a little jab in there. It said that the top 5 had all PGA Tour guys. Well, the top 10 had like a couple live guys. So it was a little bit of a I don't want to say a sucker punch by Jim Nantz. But final thing on the Masters, Vern Lundquist, a guy that has been in the broadcast game for a very, very long time. For those that don't know, he sat on the 16th tower for a significant amount of the majority of his time at Augusta, was well known for the chip-in that Tiger Woods had. Did you get to listen to Vern much outside of the Masters, or when you hear Vern Lundquist, the Masters is what comes to mind?
Masters.
He did a lot of college football too. I think he was he did some SEC football games. So Vern Lundquist.
Did he do the kick
a lot of the sound,
says he did the kick six.
A lot of soundtracks in my life. He did the SEC on CBS with why can't I think of Danielson? But anyways, yeah. So I watched a lot of SEC football. So maybe that's why. But for many people, the 16th at the Masters is what he's going to be known for.
Yeah, and
did you hear him? He got choked up at the end.
He did. He couldn't finish out his thank you. But he said it. He got through it.
You think Jim Nantz he goes from the Masters and then he gets in the broadcast booth of the NFL, and the very first game he just wonders what he's doing with his life?
Yeah, there's going to be a point where he just does Masters. That's coming soon. I don't know when his contract ends with Amazon, but it's coming very soon.
Amazon? You talking about CBS?
No, isn't he? Yeah, CBS. What did I say? Amazon?
Yeah.
Who am I thinking of?
Amazon is this is where you're putting me on.
It's
the
Kirk
spot.
Herbstreit, isn't it?
It's the guy that came over. It's the guy that came over for Sunday Night Football. Al Michaels.
Al Michaels. That's who I was
Yeah.
thinking of. I got confused.
Yeah.
That's it.
I've got a Masters question real quick.
Please.
I saw this on TikTok yesterday. I thought it was interesting. I think I know both your answers, but I think you guys should think about it a little bit.
Okay.
Do you think you could win the Masters
In
if
10
you
years.
started on the green, as far away from the hole as everyone else, like as far away from the hole as you can be, but you're just putting from the opposite edge of the green? Do you think you could win the Masters just putting?
I'm gonna say yes, but I don't think I could. I'm gonna say yes because I think I'm a good putter. I think that's the one thing I do have in my golf game that a lot of people don't. Is I think I'm a pretty damn good putter. I don't think I've got those greens in me. I don't know if I've got those greens.
You're more than likely gonna get a stroke every par 5.
Yes.
Yes, like you got to think. Just think about how many strokes you think you're going to average per green, and it's probably somewhere around 4. It's a tough question.
I think I would win.
Okay.
Yeah. My ego says I would win.
If I can practice
I mean, that's
on the greens
such a
the day
ridiculous
before.
advantage. It's such a ridiculous advantage.
You do have the opportunity to like get a 2-putt, which would be incredible. Like, right? Like you get a 2-putt on like a par 5.
What if you accidentally run one in on a par 5 too? Like, I
Right.
mean, I don't know. But yeah, that's a good question. You know what they should do, which Augusta doesn't need to do this, but you know why don't we do some more fun things like that? I feel like that would be very interesting. Also, final note here, as Natty Ron's very upset that we talked about the Masters this long, and my apologies, Natty, is that I did see, and this might have been a spoof on X because from time to time, on the internet, not all things are true that you read. But there was a raffle that Augusta does locally, I guess, to see if there was, and you could win a raffle to play on Monday, play a round of golf on Monday. And a lady had won who's a news anchor at a local station, and it was going to be her very first round of golf she's ever played. Now, I don't know, again, to be clear, if this is 100% true, but if that were to be true, do you think that she should forego on that round and either give it up to somebody else that actually plays golf that she knows, or do you think that she should just go out there and do her best for her first round of golf ever?
Personally, if I won a raffle to play at Augusta, I would, and I'm saying this truly, I would give it to someone it would mean much more than me. Like, I like, it would be cool, but like my brother, that'd be the coolest moment of his life, and he's got 2 kids. Like, that'd be the coolest thing ever. So I'd give it to someone that would mean much more than me. So yeah, I would give it up.
Fair enough. All right, when we come back, we are going to discuss the Reds. Maybe T. Higgins.
Oh.
Maybe Justin Jefferson.
Oh.
The NFL. Wouldn't be a show without it. That and more on 1410 Wing AM. All right, we are off the radio. So, really quick. One, if you could do me a big favor on the YouTube. You guys are the best. Your chat, you guys are funny. Some of you are funny. Some of you aren't as funny as others, but I won't call you guys out. Just if you could hit the like button, that would be amazing. Drew is championing the like button today. Natty Ron is championing the like button. I can't say that. Like button today.
Like button.
They are championing it. One is suggesting that it'll just make your life better. It's like good karma. The other is suggesting that Justin Jefferson's fate as a Cincinnati Bengal depends on it.
Ooh.
That's
Chat really wants you to tell him who's funny.
I can't do that.
Why don't you give him one name?
One name that's funny?
Yeah, in there. This isn't all of them. This is just one name.
All right.
Oh no.
I feel like I'm gonna find the comment that made me laugh.
That's tough.
I feel like you're
that you
scrolling
couldn't-
too much.
Yeah, that you didn't just say.
I think
one right
Fergie
away.
Fowler's
That's tough.
funny.
No, she's not.
Mean. So mean.
She's not.
I put it on the T for you. You swung and missed.
How do you say Armisted's first name? Charisse?
Charisse.
Charisse? She said, "Who cares about Kentucky basketball?"
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, great point. Nobody, apparently.
So that's your funny chatter of the day?
No. No, you're putting me on the spot now.
It is.
Now I can't find the comment, and then you're gonna make me name some random person that I'll tell you who does make me laugh from time to time. And I shouldn't say this out loud because I give them now their head's gonna be inflated, big ego, you know. But Mouse Cop's pretty fun.
Oh, what a terrible!
Oh,
my
no.
God! What a terrible
You
pick.
gave
Mouse
into
Cop,
him.
What a
Mouse Cop,
terrible
Mouse Cop's
pick.
funny. He makes me laugh. He said he's not going to like the stream until we do 15 minutes of MLS talk. And you know what would happen if we did 15 minutes of MLS talk? We'd have 0 more likes for the rest of the show because
Yeah,
there
it would
wouldn't be
be
anybody
tough.
watching.
I was talking with Casey about this.
Yes.
What the hell are they doing putting games at Saturday night at 7:30? We gotta have a new time. We gotta have. I was talking to Casey last week.
We need some
What's
midweeks.
wrong with that?
Because who the hell's watching soccer games at Saturday?
Question,
Saturday nights?
Elliot. What are people doing at 7:30 on a Saturday?
I don't know,
Going out
hang-
to a sports bar, maybe?
Hanging out with friends.
Yeah, at a bar, maybe,
Friendship?
where there's the game on. I
Just-
don't know.
I don't go to
Maybe.
those kind of sports bars. I go to the realer ones.
What about the Reds who play on Saturday nights?
Huh? But that's because there's 162 games. They have to play.
There's 40 games.
Okay.
I
Let's
want-
peel this on.
The best part. The best part of.
I'm talking about a sport that is trying to grow in this country and that has been growing in this country.
Okay.
I'd like him to have a day where I'm like, okay, I got nothing going on. Today's a good day. Why not?
Well, you
like,
name
here's
me
the
the
thing
date and
about
time.
soccer.
You tell me the time then.
Here's the thing.
I want either Sunday or Thursday at 7 p.m. And I know they do that Wednesday.
Sunday at
midweek.
7
Compete with the
p.m.
NFL?
Yeah, but like nobody's gonna watch. Like I need
Not even that, but
I
like
need
you have
soccer to
work
get-
the next
I need-
day. You
I
have
need
school the next day.
I need soccer to get me through this time period. I don't
Listen,
want to watch Sunday
Ellie
night
Rue.
baseball.
Dude,
Ellie
they're
Rue,
all
I say this
through
with
the
all due
year.
respect. They could put it at the perfect time for you.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna watch it.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
They're catering to their fans, and a big part of soccer fandom is getting together, right? It's kind of this whole thing. Go over to Europe, they get together, they do the chants, they sing the songs and everything like that. That's a big part of soccer fandom, and that's what they're trying to create. Is like, hey, this is 7:30, FCC plays, get
I wish
together
they
and watch
put
the
it
game.
on-
There's literally not a better
guys.
time in the world.
Saturday
for
morning.
people to
Saturday
go
morning's
out
better.
and enjoy themselves
Saturday
on
morning's-
Saturday night.
Saturday morning's better.
And listen,
You are
the-
absolutely ridiculous.
That's why the Premier League is so much better.
Dude, they're playing.
They're not
Yeah, you turn this into a bit, and this is what you do, Mr. Rearing. This is what you do. You do this all the time. He sits there in that chair, and he looks straight in your face, and he says, "I can win the Masters in 10 years." And then after everybody laughs at him, and everybody tells him that he's an idiot, he then spins it around. He's just a spinner. He's like a top on a table. He just spins it around and acts like he's been joking the whole time. You were not joking this whole time.
Yeah, I was.
You were being dead serious when you just said
You just
Saturday
never
morning
know.
and Sunday night. Your two suggestions were Saturday morning and Sunday night, which are preposterous.
No, it's not preposterous. It's
this is just not a serious take.
This is a serious take. I want the times changed. It's bad enough they put it behind the 2 different paywalls on Apple TV Plus. And I want these games at a time where just me, a guy who doesn't like soccer, can tune into it. I want my attention catered. That's what I want.
So you know how like in life when I was younger, I used to make fun of soccer, and I used to make
Sure.
fun of soccer fields. I would say soccer fields were a waste of space. They were basically beautiful green grass that ultimately could go to better use. And I would joke from time to time about how you have perhaps soccer players that would flail around on the ground and act like they're hurt, and maybe from time to time call them names. I have. Because of my one son, who obviously loves soccer, going to soccer games, I've slowly, and I'm not there yet to sit here and suggest that I'm a fan, but I know what's going to ultimately end up happening, because when you have kids and they get into things, you become invested in them, and you end up actually liking them because you want you're just trying to be a good parent. I find myself enjoying soccer more than maybe one would like to admit, if we're being honest. Now, I don't know enough about the rules. I don't know enough about the strategy. But there is something to be said about the fact that I could see myself in 7 years being a soccer guy.
I could be too if you put the
Only if they
the
played at
games-
9 o'clock on Saturday mornings, right?
Correct. That would be ideal. Now I'm gonna sleep through the first half, but for the second half I'll be ready to go. I mean, nobody scores in the first half anyway.
It's just ridiculous. This is a
Kubo
terrible take.
had a good game.
Kubo had a good game. He's basically our only scorer on the team. He leads the team in scoring with 3 goals on the year. FC is really struggling, man. If we're actually going to give my myself a platform to talk on it for a couple minutes here.
Sure.
They are really, really struggling. And I don't know if it's just because people have blind faith that they're going to find a way to turn things around like they've done the last 2 years. I don't think it's happening this time. I really don't. The guys that they replaced, meaningful positions on this roster, have all underperformed or been like right around the same level. Like Mascara and Robinson are very similar in talent, but man, when you lose Brenner in 2023, when you lose Vasquez this year, it has just affected our offense completely. And then not to mention the up and coming Barreal on the wing. I mean, he really shared the duties of all the place kicks and corner kicks with Acosta, and I feel like those two together were really good at trading back and forth. Now Acosta's taking every single shot, and it just feels like every time it's very uncompetitive. Like 30% of the time it's a decent kick, but like every opportunity we've had offensively feels like it gets squandered. Feels like Acosta's trying to do too much. Feels like Bupenza is just out there. Baird, Baird's almost a joke, and there's no depth on this team where you can look and say, yeah, that guy's just developing. These guys are like 28 years old, 29 years old. They're in a point of their careers where they are what they are. Bupenza is who he is. Baird is who he is. Guys like Brenner, guys like Vasquez were still growing. They were very young. They were early 20s. And I don't know, man. I just think that this team is really struggling right now. They don't have any hope as of development-wise. They're going to have to find something outside of the organization, I feel like, to get that offensive spark going. Kubo being the leading goal scorer, that's just unacceptable. I mean,
Is the season dead?
It's not dead. They're still a good team. Like, they're just not the best team in MLS. They're not this team that you're just going to be at the top of the table all season long.
Here's a question for you. Saturday night, 7:30 p. This is on April 20th against Atlanta United. They do the thing where the bottom team is actually the away team in soccer, which is...
That's right.
Is that a must-win game against Atlanta U?
Atlanta U. I mean, I think that that's not a must-win. Obviously, we're too early.
Can't lose, though.
Yeah, it feels like you can't lose. You need to stay up top on the table. You need to stay as close as you can to the top three.
But we should just get Messi.
Oh, man.
That's what we should have gotten.
I don't know why I found this so funny, but Casey's doing a very nice job of breaking some things down. And I asked him, is the season dead? And he says, no, the season's not dead. He dropped it. When's the next game?
Well, it's just
I don't know if you meant to do that, but
sometimes they do those Wednesday night games, and I don't understand it. I need to start learning the play. I only know Celentano, and he's hurt. That's the only guy I know on the team, and he's hurt.
That also doesn't help either. Celentano's a game changer. I mean, who knows what we could be at right now if Celentano just is there. I mean, no offense to guys like Khan, and I don't even know the other guy's name who played 2 weeks ago, but we've given up 2 goals now. I mean, I think Celentano at least negates one of those. So.
I agree. Let's do some ads before we get back to radio.
That's right. We're going to do the ads, go back to the radio, and talk about very, very, very serious sports talk that people want. People want the NFL talk today. NFL's back.
It is back.
Don't know if it ever left, but
never leaves.
It's definitely back now. We got people in the chat asking for some NFL talk. There was a point in time where NFL talk was tired, but it's not anymore.
We're
Tell you
back.
what, Justin Jefferson's like it's like Christmas in July almost. Like it's a revive.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the good weather. Maybe it's Justin Jefferson. Maybe it's just the thought that Joe Burrow's back.
Well, here's what happens. Reed and I were talking about it last week. It's basically there's a point in the baseball season right at the beginning where pretty much every game matters, and then as the season slowly goes on,
you settle in.
You're like, all right, now we know what we're getting, and then every game from here until like August is like, okay, let's just have some fun along the way and not lose out. But I think that's where we are in the baseball season. I think everybody's calmed down. We're settled in. It's not day by day, pitch by pitch anymore. It's just we'll go week by week, and we'll go from there. So that's where we are. And when that happens, you talk about some NFL. But before the NFL, Pawnee Water.
All right, let's start with Pawnee Water.
I don't think we ever start with Pawnee.
No, we don't. Not usually.
Today's the day.
Today's the day, though. Made right here in Hamilton, Ohio.
Ohio.
Pawnee Water uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the
Filtrate.
artificial processing that other brands use.
Brands.
The result is a
Result.
healthy alkaline water, and some
healthy.
say the best tasting water in the world. See right there, pH of 8 means it's healthy. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNI water.com so you can buy this great tasting water. And let me tell you about our sports report here that covers all the different teams around Cincinnati.
Oh.
Encore Technologies.
Yes.
Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency.
And
Productivity.
That's right, guys. Productivity. Path to innovation begins here. Visit
Where?
encore.tech.
Where?
Right here. Right here.
I've told you this before, Casey, but when I worked at that other place I worked at, there was an ad read for Encore Technologies probably once a day. I would hear it, and it was usually like Dan Horde or somebody. I think you're better. I think you're better than it. Better than Dan when you read that.
Oh, thanks, Elliot. I appreciate that.
I think your ad read's spot on.
Nice. I
You
like
guys
that.
want to hear something exciting?
Yeah.
The MLB just dropped their power rankings. Their weekly power rankings. 33% of the top 12 teams are from the NL Central. Four
Wow.
teams in the top 12,
Very
including
nice.
Teams in the top 12.
including the legs,
Wow.
including the leggies.
We'll talk about that in a second, I'm sure.
Yeah. But let's wrap up these ads with the Game Time app, our ticketing sponsor here for Chatterbox Sports. Use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Redeem code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. It's just 2 simple clicks. You get to see exactly where you're sitting at. All pricing's up front. And, get your tickets right at the game time because that's basically what the app is for. And it's one of the best looking apps, like Elliot said, and that kind of goes to say something for us. We really like when apps are usable and they actually look good.
Right.
That's Game Time. Use the Game Time app. Tickets right now are getting to that point in the season where they're kind of cheap too. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Download Game Time app. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
That's right. It's Monday.
That's right. It's Monday.
That means it's game time. Speaking of game time, it is nice when you have an app that looks good and works.
Correct.
Big time.
There's some apps that still have sponsorships in the city, specifically with the Cincinnati Bengals, that do have apps, and then their app kind of sucks. But I'm glad we have Game Time because it's always good to have an app. Game
Yeah.
Time's app's legitimately the best out of
Right.
any of the other ticketing apps that I won't mention here.
Right. Even though even though it's said that they were going to get better and better,
Correct.
but never really happened. All right, we got to be quiet for a minute.
Yeah,
Casey
5
wants
seconds of silence.
Casey wants us to be quiet so we can come back on the radio.
5 seconds of silence.
All right, we are back for hour number 2 on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers on this lovely Monday edition of April 15th. Tax Day. Tax Day. Now, I know that for Tax Day for me is different than others, and that just means that basically I gotta find out how much money I owe to the IRS. So it's not really that glorious of a day today, although it's beautiful outside. I am thankful to live in this country, so I'm happy to pay taxes. But this is always a little bit of a Debbie Downer type of day. However, what was not a Debbie Downer, at least in the city of Cincinnati over the weekend, was X.com when it came to Justin Jefferson. Now I know you made fun of Casey here before we kind of got the show started on its
Sure.
very serious sports talk
Very
journey today.
serious.
But you were suggesting that there weren't any types of rumblings at all with this Justin Jefferson T. Higgins thing, but I think some of it spouted from the fact that T. Higgins had some comments over the weekend. What did you make of those comments, if anything? Did you see him, Casey? I'm sure you did.
Of all the Justin Jefferson talk?
No, of T. Higgins specifically. T. Higgins obviously came out, made a statement about whether or not someone asked him point blank if he had planned on playing for the Cincinnati
I see.
Bengals.
Yeah, I see.
And he had a comment. We'll pull that up here in just a moment, but
Yeah,
your overall thoughts on that first.
I mean, what is he supposed to say, I guess, is what I would shoot back with. I mean, if he wants to keep it to where it's cordial with the fans, cordial with the teammates, you say that, and if there is anything behind the scenes, you just let that play out, and if something happens, it happens, right? Also, too, it's not like he's the one directly talking with anyone else. It's just his agent, and whatever his agent tells him, that's what he's going to say. I do think, though, what he said about him loving the city and the fan base, I thought that was a little weird because I thought he already kind of showed his appreciation and love for the fan base. You don't have to reestablish that you found a new love for the city.
That's what I tell my wife.
But, I think it's more just player speak. I don't look too much into it. The other stuff, though, some of the speculation about him being traded, that's the stuff that really gets me excited. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but that's.
He essentially said, I anticipate playing for the Bengals this year, but we'll see. That's enough. That trends on both ways. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Listen, you guys know my opinion on the whole Justin Jefferson coming to the Bengals thing. I thought it was incredibly tired that we keep doing this 2019 LSU thing. Oh, we got to get Thaddeus Moss. We got to do this. We got to get this guy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson. We're getting the band back together. I thought it was tired. I wanted to move on. It was 5 years ago. It was great. It was a great moment in college football, and we've got two of the main pieces of the puzzle there. But we don't need to get Coach O to be our head coach. We don't need to recreate the LSU Tigers. And I thought that entire time. I thought it was just a tired take. But then I don't know. You just keep seeing some smoke over the trees. You're like, is that a fire? What's going on? Are we sure? We sure this is happening? And then a little scuttlebutt gets thrown your way. And you get a little excited. You're like, I don't know, man. I originally thought it couldn't happen. I originally thought it was just a fan base is getting, hey, we're going to get Justin Jefferson. Let's get Justin Jefferson. Yeah, whatever. If we get him, how are we going to pay for him? But like I said earlier, maybe it's just a thing where you just book the vacation and you'll pay for it later. You'll figure it out on the back end.
Right.
I don't know. All I can tell you is that for the first time, and I can only speak for myself, for the first time, I'm starting to believe that there might actually be something happening here.
You got some inside sources that have been right before that have suggested that there is something that's holding this up that would be required to have it happen. That's not too far-fetched.
Kind of. Yeah, I heard from people that have told me things before. Right, I don't claim to have sources, but right. I heard from people
that's exactly what they are. But go ahead.
That have told me things that have come true before. That there is a deal in place. They're just waiting on T. Higgins to get an extension.
For an example, we're not going to out your sources here, but give me the example where they were right and it happened.
They told me that DJ Reader was. Got an embarrassing offer from the Cincinnati Bengals that made him disgruntled. He wanted to come back to the Bengals, and they gave him an embarrassing offer, and then he went up to the Lions and then went on Kay Adamson's show and said he wanted to be a Bengal but got disrespected by the offer. So
interesting.
Check.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's my same, I guess we're going to call it source as well. But something just broke that kind of helps open up this conversation a little bit because Reed kind of explained what the details are of this rumor, which is the deal has already been worked out between these two teams, between the Vikings and the Bengals in terms of compensation, but it was all about contract. Can they get the contract figured out?
You're the Vikings with an extension with T, right?
Yeah. And we
have
got
breaking news. Dun, 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 dun.
The Eagles, they just signed Devontae Smith.
Oh.
A 3-year, $75 million deal.
Oh.
Guarantees include $51 million.
So this looks like the floor, as Drew Garrison just put in the chat, this looks like a T. Higgins kind of contract, or at least like the floor of what he'd get. Probably deserves a little bit more. But it also shows that the Philadelphia Eagles are paying two big-time wide receivers.
That's right.
And a quarterback.
It opens up different doors for both sides, right? Even if the Vikings conversation is null and void, this kind of reopens up the door for the Bengals in terms of renegotiating with T. I mean, one has a different pedigree. One has a first-round status, a Heisman behind his name. This is technically a 5-year deal if you look at it that way, because they're adding that 5th-year extension onto that contract. So it really plays out to more like a 5-year, $100 million deal. But the guarantees are still the same. And if that's what's really holding up T. Higgins and signing with the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't know. I think that they could get a deal done again if they want to open up the table of negotiations again. But again, that requires someone to step down what their normal asking price was. So that's on the player side, on T. Higgins' side. So it's tough to see.
Was that guaranteed?
50 million's guaranteed.
51 is guaranteed.
51's guaranteed. Do you think that the Bengals are gonna go against the grain of what they've traditionally done outside the quarterback position and give that much guarantee to T. Higgins? Do you think? I guess the better question would be. This may be a more fun question. Would be T. Higgins, and listen, he has had great moments in Bengals uniforms, and when healthy, I think that T. Higgins, you could argue, is a number 1 receiver in the NFL. The question ultimately is, though, do you value T. Higgins that much to stay?
Yeah, so the trend for Bengals is they will pay players at top positions of priority. Like, they re-signed A.J. Green. They re-signed Carlos Dunlap. They re-signed Geno Atkins.
Andrew Whitworth, right?
The first time. Which this would fall under that T. Higgins category. It just depends on how they view him. Do they view him as a top 20, a top 10? Obviously, they probably view him as like a top 25 player in the NFL at that position, and T. Higgins thinks otherwise. And that's the only reason why the deal hasn't gotten done up to this point. Otherwise, they probably would give out more guarantees. But something like this, where Devontae, who's in that similar mold, not the similar type of receiver, maybe similar in terms of like the injury history or that concern that follows Devontae Smith being smaller, and similar play in terms of stats and things like that, I think that that this is a good bridge between where the Bengals and T. Higgins could potentially fall. If it's maybe even an extra $5 million in guarantees, I think that's like, what's the difference? I mean, 50 or 55. I mean, it sounds really big, but in all honesty, that would be a huge payday for T. Higgins regardless. I don't know. I think it's interesting where we're at right now with the whole T. Higgins contract situation.
In short of all this scuttlebutt, all this rumors that may or may not come true, this is exactly where I stand. I'm still geared up that T. Higgins is going to play for one final year as a Cincinnati Bengal, and then probably will go off his merry way. I think that's the most likely scenario here. But from rumors that we've heard, it would be like this year's first-round pick, next year's second-round pick, and T. Higgins for Justin Jefferson.
Which would be – I would do that in a heartbeat. I would do that absolutely in a heartbeat. Mainly because, one, you're getting 2 of the top 3 best receivers in all of football back together. I don't think we've ever seen something like that in the NFL. Maybe, like, if you want to try to compare, like, the Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall for the Bears, but that's not even close. I think it opens up a lot of doors offensively for your team. I think that all the players available at round 1 don't even compare to what Justin Jefferson's probably going to give you for the rest of that time there in Cincinnati.
How many years would be worth it for JJ? For that specific trade scenario, how many years would be worth it?
You'd have to extend JJ.
Yeah,
it would be the closest thing, and I would argue it's better than Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I actually think that they would be better than those two, which is
correct.
Which is saying a lot.
Yeah, that's a better comparison.
In all, if we're gonna go down the speculation of if the Bengals could get Justin Jefferson, I believe Joe and Jamar have stated that they would take a pay cut to make that happen.
That's the other thing too.
I mean, you're still going to be looking at least close to 50%, 45 to 50% of your salary cap as its current state going to 3 players, which is a bit scary. But I don't know. Like I said, I didn't think it made a whole lot of sense just a few weeks ago. But, at some point you just got to get excited about exciting things. So I'll do that.
I think it's a little unlikely. I think it's a little.
It is unlikely.
I do think this trade makes a lot of sense for the Bengals, but I don't know if it makes a whole lot of sense for the Vikings because of the compensation. If it is true, you getting pick 18 doesn't you could probably combine 18 and 11 to jump up to 5 or 4 or whatever they want to go to get their quarterback of the future. But I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to also trade away Justin Jefferson as well. And they've got plenty of offensive talent. Could
you guys imagine this? They make this trade. Justin Jefferson is a Cincinnati Bengal. In the offseason, we get to the preseason, and all of a sudden Zach Taylor says, I don't want to get any of these guys hurt again. We're not playing them. Gets to the regular season. First 4 games, they go 1-3. Could you imagine the state of this city with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow starting 1-3 yet again under Zach Taylor because yet again he didn't want to play him during the preseason?
You and your hypotheticals.
Could
man.
you imagine
I'll
what
tell you,
this
your
city
poor
would
brain,
do?
it just goes to places that no other human
What do you think?
brain
What do you
goes
think? What do you
to.
think the Bengals? What do you think the Bengals?
What this city would do?
What do you think the Bengals' record is the last 3 seasons in the first 4 weeks?
is it 500?
I would say under 500.
It's exactly 500. I went 3-1, 2-2, 1-3.
Sounds like a lot of struggles. What are the records on the first 2 games?
First 2, 0-2 last year.
Correct.
0-2 this year.
What's the record in the first quarter of the first game?
But you want to do the record at the end of the year?
No, I don't want to do that. Game.
Okay.
That doesn't fit my narrative.
Okay.
Well,
Regardless,
here's the thing. You had mentioned, I don't know why the Vikings would do this. I'm being serious. The Vikings are in a position right now where do we think that Justin Jefferson matters at all to them?
they would be
They're
getting
not winning football games, guys. We all know this.
I don't know.
They're not winning
I
football
don't know,
games,
man.
They're
Listen,
just not. They're
listen.
not. They have something that they hold right now that people value. What I would consider significantly. You would like to think that if you were the Vikings, you would want to cash in on that opportunity.
I do
Caleb
think,
this is my take on the Minnesota Vikings. There is not, for all the teams that are looking to draft a quarterback this year, there is without a doubt not a better spot to land than Minnesota. They've got, at the moment, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, a very smart offensive-minded head coach, O'Connell, who won a lot of games with some really bad quarterback play this past year. And made Kirk Cousins look like a superstar.
Kirk Cousins is very good.
Made him look like a superstar. The Minnesota area is it's a great spot for a quarterback to land at the.
I hope Justin Fields can go there then.
He's already on a team.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, and he's playing in a division with not a lot of good defense.
That's true too.
Out of all of the preseason win totals, which we haven't even gone over that. The one I like the most is Minnesota Vikings over 6.5. I think they win at least 7.
So you're suggesting to me right now that Vegas has these guys, the team that you think that is prone for a quarterback to come in and succeed right away. They have that team at 6.5 wins.
Right.
And you're suggesting to me that they should hold on to a piece that in which otherwise becomes relatively worthless in the near time frame.
I didn't say that.
Because of
did
6.5.
Did I say that?
No, I'm saying that I said, let's be honest, the Minnesota Vikings are not going to win football games, and you're over here suggesting that they might.
I think they might. Yeah.
I mean,
I do think
what
that
are they going to win?
I do think
I think
they're
they could be
in the middle
around
of the league.
500 without a doubt.
And what does that win you?
Around 550% of your games?
Yeah, I'm just saying, what does that win you, though? It's
wins you about
irrelevant.
50% of your
You become a
games.
nobody. In 10 years, no one even remembers the season.
But it's a season in which they're getting a rookie quarterback.
What are you arguing?
I'm arguing that at some point you move on from pieces that you have value from. That's what I'm arguing.
Yeah, I think that they should make the trade. If they get a first and a second round pick and T. Higgins, and that's a no-brainer for them. What?
And why wouldn't the Bengals do that?
I think that's where we're at. What?
Well, that's my point. So it should be done deal then.
If T. Higgins gets an extension, yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole holdup.
It's the whole hang up from the sources that I've heard is that the extension for T. Higgins is about $10 million off in guaranteed money. Like from what I've heard, I'll read the text out.
Yeah,
let me read this text that I
160.
got.
And I'm suggesting that I don't. If I'm the Vikings, I'm more or less interested in draft capital than trying to find some solution.
Real quick, this
for
is the
T.
text.
Higgins.
This is the text. I know we got a break. I've been told pick 18 in next year's second round for Justin Jefferson has been agreed to. Jefferson has agreed to a deal with the Bengals, so Justin Jefferson would get an extension with the Bengals. The roadblock is T's extension in Minnesota, which is about $10 million in guarantees off. The person telling me this would not lie to me.
Did Devontae Smith just decide to make that whole deal possible? Did he set the mark? Did he set the bench? I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it after this on 1410 Wing AM. We are back with all the sources.
I think I know
we
your
are
source.
a source.
I think I know your source.
machine. We are a source machine.
Because your source sounds like somebody who's talked to me before. The way your
My
whole text,
sources are in the same validity as Trace's source on Brad Stevens.
Yeah, Brad Stevens. I should
Going
have
to
taken
UK.
that bet. That was
we are batting 1,000 on sources on this show in recent memory.
all-time bag fumble by me by not taking you up on your $200 wager for Brad Stevens to be the next head coach of Kentucky basketball. Should have taken that one.
I don't think it's nowhere near as preposterous if you guys made it out to be, but we're not going to get hung up on
I
that.
think
on
it's,
this
I think
show.
that's horribly
can we agree that
the most preposterous thing maybe of all time.
Do you want to make another bet then?
No,
really
because
quickly.
You're 0 for 1 in bets.
No,
We'll just keep it
I'll
down
make
to
a
the only
50.
one
I'll
seller.
make a 50-50 bet with you.
What is that?
It's unfortunate because it's going to be a long game. You ready for it?
Sure.
How old is Brad Stevens?
Did you think I would know that off the top of my head?
No, I did not. But you let me know Brad Stevens' age, and then we'll have a fun
47.
47. Before he's 60 years old, Brad Stevens will be the head coach of a college basketball program.
I thought it was Kentucky was the bet.
Yeah. You're getting the whole landscape now?
Well, I mean, I can't. Listen, there's only so many of these jobs that open up, and I had said before it's going to be a blue blood school.
Yeah, and it's been rumored IU for a while because that's his dream job.
So if IU opens up, you think that he'll take that?
I know he won't because he hasn't, because they've offered.
So that's my. So why? So what are we getting hung up here? It's either a yes or no question before we get back to the
Sure,
NFL.
then no, it will not happen.
All right, so we'll make a wager. Since you consider it's not going to happen.
All right,
Back
back to this scuttlebutt.
Well, listen, I think everybody likes drama. Everybody likes it. So essentially right now what we're saying on this
wins
show,
that trade?
on Off the Bench, what we're saying on this show is that T. Higgins is the only thing that's holding up this trade that is basically going to bring Justin Jefferson to Cincinnati, and that is the guaranteed money that he's going to receive on an extension that the Minnesota Vikings want to have happen before they decide to trade Justin Jefferson.
Correct. So in this scenario, the Bengals would get Justin Jefferson in a long-term deal. The Vikings would get a third first-round pick this year, another second-round pick next year, and T. Higgins for an extension. Who wins that trade?
I mean, it depends on how
Can it be a win-win?
Yeah, it could be a win-win. It just depends on how good the quarterback is that the Vikings select because, I mean, the offense for the Vikings would still be pretty damn good.
Correct.
So, I mean, I think that would be – I think it could be a win-win.
Are we over? And I'm not suggesting for a single second. It's going to sound like I'm a Bengal hater right now. But the idea that Devontae Smith and T. Higgins are relatively the same is crazy to me. I'd say that Devontae Smith's significantly better in regards to just what he provides. I mean, for one, you got to play. And I'm not trying to kill T.
That's
Higgins.
the only area where he's better. When T. Higgins
how
is on
much
the field, he's
value do
better.
we put on T. Higgins here? Like that's if you take T. Higgins out and you slide in another what we would say above average receiver in the league, did the Bengals even miss a beat? And they might. I'm not trying to downplay T. I'm just wondering what kind of value we as a Bengal nation put on T. Higgins.
I don't know. Like when T's on the field, he's probably a better player. But Devontae's on the field more. Devontae Smith has not missed a game in his 3 years. T.
Pretty
Higgins
impressive.
has missed a lot of those.
I'd probably take Devontae because of
But
that.
when they're on the field, yeah, I mean, T. Higgins has scored more touchdowns, gets more receiving yards. So when T's on the field, he's better. But Devontae Smith is on the field more.
The best ability,
Is
availability.
that's right. And here's the thing. If the Minnesota Vikings are going to get hung up on what are we talking, $5 to $10 million worth of
10 mil.
guaranteed money? It all comes down to whether or not you're healthy. I mean, that's what guaranteed money, for lack of a better term, more times than not means, is that, you know what, we want to make sure that you're producing at the level in which we'd hoped that you're going to produce at, and that's why we're going to give you this contract. Because otherwise, if you're not, we can cut you and we can kind of save our losses.
So here's some more thing. Now we can get in the mind of the Minnesota Vikings. If they make this trade, they now have 3 picks in the first round. 3. To where they probably can't get Caleb Williams. They probably can't. They can't go up to the first. But they could easily get the second pick. I think you could pretty easily, and they could get whatever quarterback they want that's not Caleb Williams. Something to think about. And like I said, I think if I'm a quarterback, obviously Caleb Williams is going to go to the Bears. If I'm a quarterback, if I could pick any spot that needs a quarterback, I would 100% want to go to Minnesota. Going to New England seems like a death sentence. Going to Washington looks a little better. It looks a little better, but I still just love what the Vikings have for a rookie quarterback. You play in a bad defensive division, though I think it's a good division overall. I think the Lions and the Packers are good. I think that the Bears could be good with all their draft capital, and I think the Vikings have a lot of offensive weapons. And you have an offensive head coach. Like, if I'm a quarterback, I'm chomping at the bit to go to Minnesota. Chomping at the bit.
Well, some of that chomping at the bit might be from the fact that you had Justin Jefferson as your that's where I guess my mindset with Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins is completely different, because I think that Justin Jefferson is so much far and above and beyond better than T. Higgins.
No one's denying that.
But I'm just saying, like, I think it's a sizable impact on the field. I think it's a significant impact on the field. I think it's the difference. It's the difference between being a team to where you can say, all right, man, we should maybe give the Chiefs a run for their money, to where you are clearly better than the Chiefs. Now, I know that's a bold take, but again, in my opinion, if you had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase on your team, and you had Joe Burrow as your quarterback, and of course, there's always the asterisk that is you have to be healthy. But if that were the case, there's no one in their right mind that would look at that and think to themselves that the Bengals aren't the best team. The defense is but let's just say the defense is average. There's not one person that's going to look at that team and be like, they're not the best team in the AFC. In my opinion. This is coming from a guy that's supposedly a Bengals hater. When you put T. Higgins on your team, I don't think that.
They certainly would have. I mean, yeah, and not even to mention like the youth that some spots in the youth with Andre and Mike Gesicki's in there as a tight end threat that could be in the red zone. Yeah, they've got a lot of weapons. I don't listen. I think it's a win. I think it can be a win-win. And you're talking about the difference between T. Higgins and Justin Jefferson. It's pretty clear what the difference is. It's worth about a first and a second. Like, that's the difference. They say T. Higgins is, you get T. Higgins plus a first and a second round pick. That's how good Justin Jefferson is. At least that's the deal at the current moment. And about what, $30 million, $40 million on top of that.
And I don't think there's that many teams right now that would be willing to do that to get Justin Jefferson, because there's just not that many people that either have the capital to provide that type of trade. And I'm not trying to get you all hyped up and say like, oh, this is a perfect match. But at some point, it takes two to tango, and the Bengals are in a spot to be able to do that. And you add in the fact that, in my opinion, they are a team in which are not like the Chiefs, who might think to themselves, whether they're right or wrong, and you would venture to say, Reed would say, of course the Chiefs are right, but you would like to think that you don't have to try to be outsmart everybody. Like, you could sit there, if the Bengals had success, let's say the Bengals have been to the Super Bowl back-to-back years, the Bengals could look at everybody and be like, we know what we're doing here. We don't need to go and extend ourselves and try to do something that otherwise most teams wouldn't do to get ourselves over the hump. We're right there. We've already done it. And maybe you could make the case that that's why the Chiefs are successful, is because they don't have the pressure of doing the things that we're talking about. But we'll find out. I mean, ultimately, I don't think it's as crazy far-fetched of an idea as it once was. You add in also the fact that, again, the Vikings might value something at that 18th pick that none of us really realize they value either. Like, there's a chance that they think that there's a sleeper quarterback that they know they can't get in the second round, that they might be able to get and I'm use a hypothetical here from a Packers standpoint.
It looks like they're loading up. It's perceived that they're loading up to.
Is there any chance in the world? Now you want some real scuttlebutt. Is there any chance in the world that the Vikings tell the Bengals, like, hey, we have a player on our roster or a player on our draft board that we love, that we can't commit to doing this unless we know we get them, and we could get them at 18. We think we could get them at 18, but
They're
we
gonna
don't
wait
know
till
for
the draft
sure.
day? Is that where you're getting
Is
at?
there any chance on draft day that they pull the trigger on this whole thing?
I think that they are loading up to draft up. I think that's pretty clear what they're trying to do. Is they're loading up to draft up. They don't want to be stuck with Michael Penix or something like that. They want to get a Drake May.
They want to pick their guy.
Right. They want to get their guy. They don't want to have a guy fall to them and they're like, all right,
you
well, this is
say
the best
that,
quarterback
But then
available.
the team that obviously people are going to think I'm a homer for saying this, but the team that's been the most successful in that division over the course of time have done that 2 times now, where they've essentially decided, you know what, we like this guy. We're not going to draft, or we're not going to trade all of our capital to go pick our guy. We're going to see if our guy will slide down the draft a little bit, and if he's still hanging around there, right around the 18 mark, then you know what? For all intents and purposes, we'll pull the trigger on this whole thing. I mean, again, I know that's very much speculation.
The Vikings
are at 11 and 18, but okay, to your point, let's just say, for instance, they get their guy at 11, so they don't have to essentially, and they have something at 18 they want to have as well. I don't know. Maybe they love Brock Bowers and they love a quarterback, and they're both available in those 2 slots. And then they also say, you know what, we got our weapons. You know, maybe at that point, I don't want to say that would ruin the idea of T. Higgins, but I'm just hypothetically throwing out reasons as to why the Vikings would do it on draft day versus otherwise, if that even makes sense.
I think the only thing that would go against that is that there's other teams that also want to trade up as well. Like the Raiders are not starting the year with Stidham as their starting quarterback or whoever it is. Aiden O'Connell.
QBU, Purdue.
I don't even know who the Broncos have as a starting quarterback anymore.
I don't think the Broncos are going to go for a quarterback this year. I think the Broncos are packing it in for a year, and then they'll try again next year.
I don't know about that. I mean, they're at 12. They're right behind the Vikings. They would probably not have to do a whole lot to move
Where's
up and in
JJ
front of
McCarthy?
them.
Where's JJ McCarthy slotted to go?
So here's the
someone let me
here's
know?
the take that I'll stick my
I
flag.
can't wait for some
Here's the
jabroni
take-
team to take that clown.
Here's the take that I stick my flag in. I feel overly confident, regardless as if they have Justin Jefferson or T. Higgins next year. I feel overly confident that regardless of the quarterback that they draft, and this is where I say quarterbacks matter, and then I also say that where you go matters, I feel overly confident that we will see competence. We will see overconfidence or competence from a quarterback, whoever goes to Minnesota, regardless of who it is.
You think that they'll overachieve or whatever was perceived
I think
to
they
be
will look
overachieved
like
in Minnesota?
they will look like an NFL quarterback.
Right.
I think
you
that they
say
will
if
win
they
games.
put like Zach Wilson. I'm putting your thing to a test. If you put Zach Wilson out of draft day, instead of going to the Jets, he goes to Minnesota.
Correct.
You think that Zach
Correct.
Wilson has a very
Correct.
different career?
Correct. I think
I can't
that
disagree.
they have such a good system between Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, whoever their number one is going to be, and Kevin O'Connell, who I think is an underrated, slept-on coach in the NFL. I think that whoever goes there will do well. I'm not saying they're superstar. I'm not saying that they're a Pro Bowler. I'm not saying we're going to see what we saw from C.J. Stroud this year. I'm not saying what we saw from Joe Burrow a couple years ago. I'm saying whoever goes there will work to some capacity. Similarly, I think whoever goes to New England, God bless you. God bless you, because that offense is abysmal at this moment.
I'll tell you why I don't know if that's the case right after this on 1410 Wing AM. Welcome back in. It's Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. As we headed to break, Reed was suggesting that Minnesota is the place of destiny. It's the place where if you're going to get drafted as a quarterback,
It's the best situation right now.
That is the candy land. You want
Right
to get
now.
there, my friend. Here's the problem that I have is I think that Kirk Cousins is actually a really damn good quarterback, and I think he's been slept
No
on.
doubt.
I've continued, and I said this for a time. It was always the 1 o'clock Kirk Cousins, Kirk Cousins prime time. It was always the joke. Kirk Cousins was a punching bag for quite some time in this league. And I'll tell you what, you start watching the games, you watch Kirk Cousins throw the ball around a little bit, and I'm telling you, if you get the Sunday ticket, you start to change your mind on this guy. I think Kirk Cousins was a significantly better quarterback than people gave him credit for. And I'd like to find, I guess that's kind of where our points would lie or differ a little bit here, is that Minnesota, in my opinion, might have looked and appeared to be very competent franchise on the offensive side of the ball because of Kirk Cousins, not so much of the coaching staff. And I will continue to believe that the NFL is far more made up of players who make coaches than coaches who make players. I don't think that there's all that many coaches out there that there may be a handful. You could convince me Shanahan. I'm trying to think of others. But and Bill Belichick, I get it. It's really tough to sit here and pick on him. But Tom Brady left, Bill Belichick didn't look so hot. And this was a guy that stood, I was standing at the very top of the mountain chanting about how Tom Brady's the luckiest quarterback in the history of the league and that he's lucky that Bill Belichick was his head coach and they had the best defense of all time. And I think that both can be true. But I also think that Zach Taylor, if he didn't draft or they didn't have Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor would, I'm not saying he would have been fired in Cincinnati because they hold on to coaches for a significant amount of time. Shout out Marvin Lewis's back half of his career. But for all intents and purposes, Zach Taylor probably isn't looked upon as great of a coach if he doesn't have a quarterback, which I don't think that's all that hot to take.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just looking at all of the teams that need a quarterback, right? New England, Washington,
the Jets,
Chicago,
the Chicago, Las Vegas, Minnesota.
Broncos.
If I'm a quarterback prospect going in this draft, and you ask me like, hey, you can pick where you go, I am not thinking twice, and I'm picking Minnesota. And I don't like Kevin O'Connell had this Minnesota Vikings team in position. I'm not disagreeing. I think Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback. Like, he works. He's worked almost everywhere he's been. He's also had some good situations, and I think that's important as well. This Minnesota Vikings team, finished 7-10 last year. They were in the playoff hunt going in the last 4 weeks. They lost all 4 of those games, but they played with Nick Mullins against the Lions, who were one of the hottest teams in the NFL towards the end of the year, the Packers, who were one of the hottest teams in the NFL last year, and the Cincinnati Bengals, who we got really lucky with T. Higgins in that game. This is a team, like, I think the Vikings, I feel overly confident that whoever goes there, it doesn't matter who, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, even a guy who you guys all want to laugh at, J.J. McCarthy. If J.J. McCarthy goes to Minnesota, he will have success. I think whoever goes to Minnesota will have success.
Not to mention Justin
we'll
Jefferson
find out.
didn't play.
I think if you put Zach Wilson in Minnesota, he's still trash.
I
I'll tell you what would make. I will throw
Sam
my own
Darnold's
party.
their starting quarterback, so
I
that's
will
a good
throw my own
taste.
party if
Case
Minnesota drafts J.J. McCarthy with whatever pick they have. I mean, I'll tell you right now, it'll be the same thing. It's like as a Packer fan, you just look around and laugh. It's like a bunch of joke franchises that can never figure out, they can't get out of their own way. Like the Vikings, for all intents and purposes, if they draft J.J. McCarthy, to your point, he should be successful.
Right.
That kid has zero chance to be successful. I'll say it again. If you watch J.J. McCarthy play football, an ounce of football, for the team that had the best team in college football, you have to scratch your head and wonder, how in the world is a team going to stretch and take this guy with one of the top picks in the draft? It seems impossible to me that you would do that. We're talking about a quarterback that threw the football like one time in the second half of a game this year. I mean, it's crazy. We do this every year in the NFL, like every single time. You think to yourself, they're not going to do that. There's no way they're going to go and stretch and get themselves a quarterback. Zach Wilson. Who the hell was Zach Wilson before Zach Wilson even became a draft prospect? Like, yeah, I mean, I get that you could sit here and go down the litany of the laundry list of names of quarterbacks that maybe you've never heard of before that end up being okay. But J.J. McCarthy played for the best college football team in the entire country, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. And yet he had a head coach that was bragging about how he should be the number 1 pick in the draft. By the way, that same guy, he's got a couple screws loose. And by a couple, I mean a half a dozen. You're saying he doesn't? I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest. Harbaugh, as much as he's a great head coach, probably shouldn't be saying that J.J. McCarthy should be the number 1 pick in the draft when he turns around and decides in a game plan against one of the top teams in his conference, at that time a top 25 ranked team on the road. He turns around and takes that number 1 pick in the NFL draft and uses him one time. I don't even know, did he throw the ball one time in that game?
I don't know.
But anyways, I digress in saying J.J. McCarthy, you can take it to the bank. He will be the guy that if somebody overreaches, some GM's going to overreach for.
I don't disagree
he will
with
be
that.
a bust. And I hope it's Minnesota because I was just told that no matter who they get, it will work out.
No, listen,
a juggernaut.
I don't disagree that if J.J. McCarthy goes to New England, it's not going to work. like I said, I think whoever goes to New England, God bless you. Get on those knees and pray because you're gonna need some help from the man upstairs to be competent. I just feel overly confident that whoever Minnesota gets will be competent because of the system. We talk all the time, right? Well, he's got great players around him. Oh, he's got a great coach around him. I think that Minnesota, out of all of the situations that you can have in the NFL, out of all the guys that are presumed to draft a quarterback this year, Minnesota is head and shoulders the best situation between a drastically underrated head coach in Kevin O'Connell, what is right now perceived to be the best wide receiver in the league. He might leave. Hopefully he leaves. Still, even if they get T. Higgins, you got T. Higgins, Jordan Addison, and T.J. Hawkinson. That's pretty good. You've got a good line. Like, you got a decent running back. Like, all these things, that's a situation that you want to go. It's like going in buying a fixer-upper, right? You got these great bones, but I got to do a lot of work. Or you're just getting an apartment that's fully furnished. Minnesota is essentially an apartment that's fully furnished on top of a division that doesn't have very good defenses. Packers, I think, are very good. I like the Packers next year. They've got a lot of work to do on that defense. The Lions, I like them a lot. I think they are a contender in the NFC for years to come. They've got some work to do on that defense. And the Bears are the Bears at the current moment. But, like, I like Minnesota as a landing spot for whoever it is. I'm not going to stick a flag and say J.J. McCarthy is going to be a good quarterback unless he goes to Minnesota. If he goes to Minnesota, I will say he's a good quarterback. And by that, I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 guy. I'm just saying he's going to be competent.
Oh, he will be incompetent, and I can't wait for it. In fact, that's the one thing I'll be rooting for on draft day is somehow, some way, will God please let Minnesota draft J.J. McCarthy.
If they do draft J.J. McCarthy, will you make a promise to put $1,000 on their under win total?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. I want that out. I want that out there.
100% I'll do that. And in fact, I don't understand why in the world somebody can suggest to me, and then Chad, I know we got some Michigan fans that watch this show. And they're out here saying, well, they won the football game. They ran the ball 32 straight times in Penn State. They won the football game. Could you imagine having a star NFL quarterback on your roster and deciding that, you know what, we're going to do the second half, boys? We're just going to pound the rock. We're gonna run the ball every single time. Was it snowy? No. Was it good weather? Yeah, it was fine. You could have thrown the ball if you like. Just decided not to. Now you could. I get it. That was the game plan. They won the game. Congratulations. I also watched J.J. McCarthy. We're on the radio, so I can't really say what I'd like to say. But I also say J.J. McCarthy basically try to hand a football game over to Alabama on the very first play of the game, and he not only did that once, but he did it the year before as well. So maybe the three big time football games that Michigan had to play over the last couple years, and that's all due respect to Rutgers, that's all due respect to Minnesota, that's all due respect to Indiana, that's all due respect to Maryland, that's all due respect to Michigan State, that's all due respect to the MAC schools they play as well. So J.J. McCarthy hasn't looked the best sometimes.
So let's put a bow on this NFL talk.
Please.
Last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, you suggested that the Bengals are going to win 6 to 7 games this year with their current roster. You also earlier on this show suggested that if they get Justin Jefferson, they are the best team in the NFL. How many wins do you think Justin Jefferson's worth? Because it sounds like you think he's about an 8-win player.
You think Justin Jefferson's worth 8 wins? Is that
That's
what
what
you
you think. That's what you think. Because you said that the Bengals are going to win 6 games with their current roster. And then you said if they get Justin Jefferson, they're the best team in the NFL.
When did I say the Bengals were going to win 6 games?
You said we alluded to an over-under. You said 7 and 10. 6 and 11, 7 and 10.
Pull the tape.
All right.
Find the tape.
Okay.
When did I ever say that?
On this show.
This would be damning if he finds it.
Well, regardless,
damning.
Casey, do you remember this?
Regardless, even if you had them out as a 8 or 9 win team, Justin Jefferson would be a 4 or 5 win player.
Correct.
If that was the case.
When did I say they were going to win 14 games?
Well, the best team in the
NFL.
Typically wins 14 games, 13, 14.
When did I say they were going to be the best team in the NFL?
Okay, the best team in the NFC. What are we talking about?
What are we
You said the best.
Do you
team
have
in the
any-
I
NFC.
said they would be better than the Chiefs. And
You
you
said
could
they'd
make
be
the
the
case
best
they were the
team in
best
the-
team in the AFC.
You said you'd be the
Okay.
best team in the NFL.
Okay, well, the AFC's
Oh,
better.
you guys are putting words in my mouth.
Okay,
on
the
this show. That's what
AFC
you're
is
doing around
significantly
here.
better than the
That's
NFC.
fine.
The AFC is significantly better
If
than
we're
the
gonna
NFC.
make stuff up and say Trey said the Bengals were going to win 6 games, then turn around and say the Bengals are going to be the best team in the
No,
NFL.
let me
When they
clear
get Justin Jefferson.
let me
Then
clear
yeah,
this
I
up.
mean,
I gotta
these are
transition
real.
to the Reds.
This is
Let me
real
need a
easy to do.
cranial-
I gotta
Let
transition
me
to the
clear
Reds.
this up.
What are
You
we going to
said-
talk about the Reds for? They play the Mariners.
I
They play the
gotta
Mariners.
transition to the Reds. So now we're gonna. By the way, we have 2 minutes left, so this will be very serious discourse. Cincinnati Reds on the weekend. Starting pitching. I was very worried about the starting pitching coming to the season, mainly being consistent.
142, by the way. I just want to, when you get done with this, let's see where we get to. Go ahead.
What'd you say?
We'll see. Just go ahead and keep talking.
Talking about what?
Just continue
with
on.
your point.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
So the starting pitching this weekend: 3 games, 18 innings, 2 earned runs. That's a 1 ERA. That's a 1.00 ERA. The rotation in MLB ranks this season in ERA. They rank 8th in WHIP. They rank 6th in batting average against. They rank 9th. In walks per 9 innings, it's 5th, and strikeouts and walks 3rd. They rank 3rd. So this is a top half of the league, top echelon of the Major League Baseball world rotation that we have upon ourselves here, and I'm very excited about it. I'm very, very excited. We take on the Mariners, as Trace just eloquently said there. The Mariners have not won a series this season. It will be Montas versus, I believe, Nick Kirby's brother George tonight, and then it'll be Hunter Green versus Logan Gilbert tomorrow. Andrew Abbott versus Bryce Miller on Wednesday. Again, the Reds will miss Luis Castillo for a second straight year. He pitched yesterday, so the Reds will not have to deal with Luis Castillo. Only the A's.
Luis Castillo's struggling, by the way.
I think he had a good game yesterday.
He pitched well yesterday, but I don't think he's won
Yeah.
a game. His ERA's ballooned.
Doesn't pitch well early on. Only the A's and the White Sox have scored fewer runs than the Mariners, and they have scored 49. Mariners have scored 1 run or less already 4 times this season. The Mariners' team leader in OPS is .817, Dominic Canzone. He left the game on Sunday after crashing into the wall and will be placed on the the IL. My God. Julio Rodriguez is hitting 186, 238, 203. Rodriguez 441 OPS is the 6th worst among the 189 qualifying hitters in Major League Baseball. He has yet to hit a home run this season in 59 at-bats. So this is a struggling Mariners team. This is a series, again, before the gauntlet comes very, very soon. You're going to have to win. You're going to have to win. You couldn't have looked any better against the trash White Sox. They've won 2 games all year. Shout out to you. You won the series. You took care of business. But you got to do it again now before, again, it becomes an absolutely brutal gauntlet that we have to face here come May. So let's go Reds. Good series win.
I'd be happy if they won 1. I think I'd be happy if they won.
No,
they
gotta
win a
two.
game.
They got to win 2.
Play Bryce Miller on Game 3. Bryce Miller's
All right.
a stud.
Bryce Miller's very good. Andrew Abbott versus Bryce Miller. That'll be very, very fun. My guy Jonathan India, of note, has been struggling as of late. He's 2 for 24 over his last, I think, 7 games. He's been one of the guys that need to pick up the pace a little bit. Tyler Stevenson's been coming on strong. CES appears to be coming on a little bit. Candelario, not so much still struggling. I think he had 2 hits yesterday maybe. But other than that, not very good. Just some notes.
No, listen. I'm very thankful that the Reds took care of a team this weekend that they should have beaten, and sweeping anybody is a worthwhile conversation of having a good weekend. I'm not downplaying it by any stretch of the imagination, but it was the White Sox. It was the White Sox. Okay, I mean, when you talk about a team of irrelevancy, when you talk about a team that maybe doesn't even deserve to wear a major league uniform, we're talking none other. We're not talking about the A's. We're not talking about the A's. We're not talking about the team that can't figure out where they're trying to go. They basically, quite frankly, are looking for a home. Nobody wants them. Vegas says no. You need to find somewhere else to go. Oakland's like, yeah, you guys, we want you here, but the owner doesn't want to stay. And then Sacramento is going to put them in a ballpark of 5,000. They're not even the worst team in the entire league. It's the home of the Chicago White Sox on the south side.
That's
all
correct.
right. We got one more.
No, we got to go.
We got to go. We're done. We're done here. That has been the Monday edition of Off the Bench. Kenner and Kev is up next. we'll see what we have for in store tomorrow. Why? Because we come to the radio. We come to the radio.
Yes.
Every single day from 1
P
to 3
P.
Man, you guys did a great job on that one. We'll be better than ever tomorrow. It's been Off the Bench. Thanks for listening. All right. You see. So here's the thing. I think the Reds and the Reds fan base, the expectation is going to be to win the series, and that's fine. I'm not sitting here suggesting that the Reds are going to bow down to the Mariners, especially in the way in which the Mariners are maybe playing right now. But at the same time, like the idea they haven't won a series yet. You couple the fact that it's on the road. You also add in the idea that the Mariners have a relatively pretty good team. I got to be honest. I don't like how that all adds up.
Listen. That's what I was kind of worried. I mean, you could have said that about the White Sox too. The White Sox hadn't won anything all year, and then we played them in Chicago and destroyed them. Wasn't close whatsoever. Wasn't remotely close. At no point in any of those games was it even a little bit of a game. So I'm not concerned about the Mariners. I will be disappointed if you lose this series. I will be very disappointed if you lose this series. You just can't. This is an offense that can't score. If we're putting up 3 runs, they're not winning. So. That's what we have to do, and that's how we take care of business.
Before we get off the show, I do want to lay some ground rules here. I want some people to actually have to have some skin in the game here.
Sure.
I don't know. Again, I want to know in the chat. You can post who you think would have a better career, and I need some comparisons here of guys that have had middling careers. Rosen obviously had a pretty tough career, yes?
Very bad.
Oh, we're doing quarterbacks?
Yeah, like give me some quarterbacks that had some bad careers.
Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold has had a tough go at it.
Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold's a good experiment because he's the starting quarterback of the Vikings right now.
Sam Darnold. Do you think, I want to see in the chat, do you think J.J. McCarthy will have a better career than Sam Darnold?
I think it matters where you go.
No, I'm just saying, in the chat, I want to know if you're a J.J. McCarthy supporter, because I see some people in the chat saying, Trace, they just won the national championship. Trace, this is J.J. McCarthy who did everything that they asked him to do. Okay, I don't care about all that. I get that he played on one of the best teams in college football. I watched their defense. I watched Michigan. That's why I bet on them. I put a lot of money on Michigan, because they were significantly better in the trenches than everyone else. And guess what? More times in football, you win in the trenches, especially in college. But as far as a quarterback goes, I mean, people are going to hate me for saying this. You stick J.J. McCarthy. You stick. Who's the poor kid that got ran out of town at Ohio State? Why can't I think of his name off the top of my head?
Joe Burrow.
No. But that did happen.
I forget his name.
Someone in the chat help me out. Anyways, I'm botching this right now.
Who's the kid that just played from Ohio State?
He went to Syracuse. To Syracuse.
I should know.
Why can't I think of McCord?
Kyle
McCord. If you take, now people are going to hate me for saying this, you take Kyle McCord, you put him on Michigan, and you ask him to do the same thing that J.J. McCarthy does, and I think Michigan wins a national championship again.
I kind of agree.
All right, let's.
Hey, you hate me for saying it, but that's the fact.
I think it matters.
That's an absolute fact.
I think it matters where you go.
100%.
100%. But I will say, like, Justin Fields, like, people still think Justin Fields is, like, a decent, or can be a decent player. Went to a terrible organization, did whatever, was injured a lot. I would say played mediocre, but he did enough to show that he was at least worth something. And in the end, it was worth, a 6th-round pick. Sam Darnold proved that he was worth nothing with a bad team. So that's the difference. I think
it matters. Listen, it absolutely matters where you go. I know I say a lot of bad things about Brock Purdy. I don't think I'm crazy for saying that if Brock Purdy goes to the New England Patriots, he's competing the way that he is right now. I don't think that's crazy to say. As opposed to like Bryce Young was just in it. We don't know what's going to happen with Bryce Young. He's put in the Panthers. That's a terrible situation. Trace, I would like to hear you rank these landing spots.
Okay.
Out of all the teams perceived to draft a quarterback.
Yes.
So one team is the Bears.
Yep.
Patriots.
I think the Bears are in a really good spot.
I agree.
All they needed was a competent quarterback, and they haven't had one in a long time.
I think the Bears are certainly Patriots, Commanders, Raiders. You could throw in the Giants. The Vikings, the Seahawks.
I think the Seahawks are up there.
Who would you say is the best spot?
Seahawks.
Over the Vikings and the Bears?
Yes.
Over the Bears for sure. It's not even.
Are we not gonna? Are
not
we?
even
Are we
close.
just gonna? Are we just gonna act like having a good foundation and a good franchise doesn't matter? I mean, what have the Vikings ever won?
Vikings have been to the playoffs 7 times since 2008.
What have they won?
Who's the new coach in Seattle?
When
you're
was,
walking-
when
you're
was the
walking
last
into a new
time you
coach.
nestled up on your couch on an NFC Championship Sunday, and
Watch
thought
the Vikings?
Yeah.
About 5 years ago, 6 years ago when they went
Mike
to the NFC
McDonald?
Championship?
What's that?
Mike McDonald is the head coach.
How'd that go
Where
for
was,
him? By the
where
way?
was he at? They lost.
He served as the DC.
It's about they've been to an NFC Championship game more recently than the Seahawks,
He
right?
was the DC of the Ravens.
Oh, so they got a defensive guy?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm putting them lower on my list.
Sorry.
So you have this-
sorry that the guy, the franchise and the organization that Russell Wilson came from, I wouldn't mind, and also that Gino probably had a pretty good year out there.
I don't think the Seahawks are a bad pick. You think they're a better spot than the Bears and the Vikings?
I mean, the Bears are interesting because I have not.
They have so many picks and they've got some talent. there
And
now.
on top of that, I think the Bears you haven't really got to see the Bears with a good and or elite quarterback yet. Like, I would be, and if I were being honest, of all the teams that I'm worried about getting a good quarterback, the Bears are up there.
So the Vikings made the playoffs 7 times since 2008.
Yep.
The Seahawks have made it 17 times, I think, or 16 times since 2003. Seahawks are damn good.
I'm not
But then
denying
you
that.
have
I'm not
CJ
denying
Stroud.
that.
CJ Stroud goes to Houston, and we all thought Houston was a dumpster fire. And then obviously,
Correct.
maybe the quarterbacks can overcome their ineptitude
Certainly,
around them.
there are
certainly.
some quarterbacks that can overcome, but I think Patrick Mahomes might be the GOAT when it's all said and done. If he doesn't go to Kansas City, he's not having quite the success that he's having.
Yeah, I think we could play that game all around the league.
Correct.
We could do
Where
that with
you
Tom
land
Brady.
matters. And I'm telling you, out of the teams that if I could rank them, and I asked you to rank them, you had the Seahawks up high. If I had to
Yeah,
rank these
Seahawks.
landing spots, I would put Vikings and Bears 1 and 2. That's 1 and 2 because of the Bears have so many draft picks. They have already a pretty decent team. They're building a decent team already there, plus all these draft picks. That's a spot I think between weapons, quarterback, or weapons and coach. Vikings is a great spot. I would put the Seahawks in the same camp as the Commanders. I kind of like what the Commanders are doing, building around. I know they're a dumpster fire, but I think that the Commanders with Cliff being there now, he's had some success with quarterbacks. He's going to be their OC. I think that's not a bad spot. I think, like I said, send a prayer out for whoever gets drafted by the Patriots. They're going to have to be an exceptional talent to succeed there. An absolutely exceptional talent to succeed there. They've got nothing on the offensive side. They've got a first-time ever head coach at any level, and it's a defensive head coach at that. Oh my God, that looks like a terrible proposition. In fact, I don't even think the Patriots should draft a quarterback because I don't think it's going to work regardless. So might as well just build around.
Who is the best wide receiver room out of those teams you mentioned?
At the current moment, I would put the Vikings. Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson
Correct.
are better than the Seahawks.
Seahawks would be 2, though.
Yeah, probably.
Tyler Lockett, DK, and JSN.
I would say, yeah, that's 2. I think the Seahawks are the 3rd on that list. The Raiders, I don't necessarily see a light at the end of the tunnel there either. So I'd put them near the bottom of the list of the guys that
Raiders found a way to win some games though last year.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. They
got a
seem
great
to have
team.
some spark to them.
I mean,
It's almost like if we're being another thing to bring up would be you mentioned obviously all the weapons on the offensive side of the ball and who you get to play with, and
Which
all
is what
that.
side the
And-
quarterback
and-
plays on.
And that's fine, but let me also explain that you also don't want to be in a position where your defense is terrible and you find yourself in a game where the game plan gets thrown out the window half the time and or you don't run the football a lot and you're asked to drop back 40, 50 times a game. It's not good for anybody. And if you're winning games, ask Desmond Ridder. Like if Desmond Ridder plays on the Falcons and they continue to keep winning games, and even though he doesn't play all that well, he's going to continue to get opportunities because they're just trying to win.
Right.
You want to put yourself in those positions as well. So
Correct.
the Raiders are
You
a
wanna-
team that I don't. We'll see. I think the Vikings are going to be. We're not on the radio. Ass. They're going
see.
to be ass.
We'll see.
We will see. They're terrible.
We'll see.
The Vikings are atrocious. I'll say it straight into the camera. The Vikings are atrocious. And what they ought to do right now
They were
is they
7
ought to trade Justin Jefferson while he still has some stock Because if Justin Jefferson gets hurt again, guess what? It's gone.
That's another thing that we haven't even breached on is like division matters.
Yeah,
Like,
don't trade Scooter Gennett. You know, I mean, why do that? The guy just randomly started he's an all-star for 2 years, but no, hell, he's supposed to be the next best thing since Pokey Reese and Joe Morgan in Cincinnati. You can't possibly trade him. What'd he end up doing?
I love this
Falling
show
off the
because
face of the earth.
on this show,
I hate this argument
I
because-
love this show because on this show we compare Justin Jefferson to Scooter Gennett.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what we do.
Came to my brain.
That's what we do.
Sometimes your brain
Listen,
cells aren't. Some
at
would
the
say that's
division.
elite brain cell power.
When it comes to the Seahawks versus the Vikings, which division would you rather play in? The AFC North or the AFC or the NFC North or the NFC West?
Would I rather, if I was, say it again, I'm sorry.
Would you rather play in the NFC North or the NFC West?
The North.
Correct.
Correct. Which leads to wanting to be on the Vikings as opposed to the Seahawks.
Better
I'm just
situation.
saying, like, listen.
Well, the Seahawks, though,
Vegas,
you could argue they're the second best team in that division.
I think that would be a bad
Rams.
argument, but you could do that. You could argue that the Raiders are the best team in the NFL. It's probably not a good argument.
You could argue it.
but you could certainly
Well,
start
give me
arguing
the give me the list of names then. Give me the teams. I should
the
know off the top of my head.
49ers
Yep, they're
The
the best.
Rams.
and then the Rams.
Okay, so you think that you?
The Rams.
Yes,
are-
I think that the Rams are better than the Seahawks.
Rams made the playoffs.
as most people that have like used their brain recently.
Right. Because
By the way, the
because-
Seahawks.
because
Who wins more
because
games next
because
year? Who
because
wins more
because
games
the
next
year
year?
before that the Seahawks went into a wild card game with basically I don't want to say an inept quarterback, but a quarterback that you and everybody else would laughed about. Casey saying was good. They had the 49ers down in a playoff game in the first half, which I'm not saying that's the Super Bowl by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, yeah, the
In
Rams.
the year before last year, the Vikings were the number one team in the NFC and won a playoff game.
The Rams won a Super Bowl 3 years ago.
And the Rams won a Super Bowl 3 years ago.
Correct, and what did they do to win that Super Bowl? Some are saying.
You talking
Can't
about?
wait for this.
Are you talking about going all in?
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
Okay, Seahawks. Vegas has the Seahawks.
How did they get Aaron Donald? I'm just curious.
draft?
Yeah.
Yeah, they dropped.
And then how did they get? I
So
didn't
what are
mean
you
Aaron
arguing
Donald.
now?
Matt
What are you
Stafford.
argu-
How'd they
what are
get
you
Matt
arguing now?
Stafford?
They traded.
They traded.
Yeah. They went all in.
So what are we arguing now?
I'm just saying, if Justin Jefferson's on the table, the Bengals have no excuse not to go get him.
In all honesty, can we get? Listen, I've got a guy that's called me last week about getting an internship. Here's what I'm gonna do, because I was like, hey, how can we utilize this guy?
Yeah, what about
I'm
him?
gonna bring him. I'm gonna give him the internship, and his job
Right.
is just to map out the takes that you have.
Right.
And I at the end of every show, we're gonna go like, all right, for one point, you went from talking about the Seahawks are a good landing spot, and that's why the Bengals should go all in. All right, betting odds. Seahawks 7.5 wins, Vikings 6.5 wins. Who's more likely to hit their over next year?
Seahawks.
Okay, I'll take
What's
the
Seahawks
Vikings.
number you said?
7.5. I think it's more likely the Vikings win 7 games than the Seahawks win 8.
I'm going to say the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are a good team. I'm going to say the Seahawks.
Okay, fair enough. Casey, I sent you an email for
Vikings, by the way.
Thank you. I sent you an email for the cherry on top.
Oh, damn it. I was going to use the Scottie Scheffler.
We could do both. We could do multiple cherry on tops. I want you to queue it up and see if Trace will allow us to put it on air. Because I mean, like he might not let me. He might just say, hey, let's not do that.
Oh, I like this.
I don't know what we're getting ourselves into here.
But
As long as it's not. No, I'm not going to say.
so
that.
we just gotta buy time where Casey pulls in this JPEG and gets it ready to roll. So you think the Bengals should go all in?
Do I think the Bengals should call in?
Can we do this? Can this be our cherry on top? Can this be our cherry on top?
I mean, I think what's wrong with that?
Okay, Casey, run cherry on top. Run the cherry on top logo. And I'll tee this one up. Bring the camera on me when we come back. So, in the year of our Lord 2024, a local Cincinnati magazine puts out Best of the Year. They put out the Best of the Year. They do this every year. It's called City Beat. Everyone knows about it. They go, hey, what's the best barbershop? Where's the best place to get a Friday beer? All this good stuff. They had a category this year.
This is the reader pick, by the way.
Okay, well,
So this
regardless,
is,
they published this. This magazine published this. They put out a category best sports coverage of the year 2023 going into the year of 2024. This is who they had in their top 3. 700 WLW, the home of the Cincinnati Reds. Sure, whatever. That's best. They've got good sports coverage. WCPO, they do a fantastic job. Nestled in at number 2 is Fox Sports Ohio. Anyone want to have an idea where that one doesn't play? Anyone want to guess? That's the second best sports coverage in the city, Fox Sports Ohio. Shout out City Beat.
When was the last time Fox Sports Ohio was a thing? 2018? 19?
I don't know. You guys, I think I'll be honest.
It's been gone for 3 years.
It's more comedy. It's like I can care less that some people are going to think that that's because we weren't on there. That's why we care. No, I just think it's hilarious that Fox Sports Ohio has been out of business for,
3 years.
At least 3 years. And then on top of that, not only did they go out of business, but the parent company the company that purchased Fox Sports Ohio or took Fox Sports Ohio, they rebranded it, is now going out of business, literally. Except for Cincinnati, because they figured out a way to monetize that one baseball franchise out of the 30 that they signed. So shout out to Bally for that one.
Jolly, best paper in town, the Cincinnati Post. That one's been gone, right, for years.
What is Craig saying? Bengals have re-signed exclusive
Long
rights.
snapper.
What?
Long snapper, Cal.
Yeah, so what do you guys think about Cal Adamitis?
Well, in this league, to win a Super Bowl,
Adamitis.
every team that has won the Super Bowl over the past millennia has done it so by going all in, putting all the chips on the table. And that's what they're doing by signing long snapper Cal Adamitis. So shout out to the Bengals. They're going all in. Whatever.
Speaking of synergy, Jolly's bringing up some old school businesses right now. With the Synergy, they get taken over by Duke, or what happened
Correct.
with Synergy?
Yeah.
That what happened? Okay. Interesting.
Best.
Do you think if they kept Crosley Field that it would be would it become a destination similar to Wrigley?
If they still had Crosley?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've wondered how many teams will never move out of their current stadium. Like the Cubs probably will never move out of Wrigley Field. That's
Right.
just their field forever. It seems likely that Fenway will just be the Red Sox field for forever. Are other beloved parks like PNC Park, will the Pirates ever move?
No, because that's
Will the Orioles ever move out of Camden Yards?
Nope.
Will Dodger Stadium ever be rebuilt? I could see Dodger Stadium being redone.
I could see
Reddone's different than being
Well, I know a new
moved.
stadium. I'm saying, they
No.
might have a new stadium, but I could see it going either way. How long till Cincinnati builds a new stadium? Because I don't think GABP is a field that'll be here for forever.
I don't know, man. I think you
It
get
has
yourself
great
into a
real
financial
estate.
situation with the cities to where now we've come to the. I think that you've talked about this time and time again, where most municipalities and cities have come to the understanding that maybe building stadiums for revenue purposes is not a good deal, and you have owners that obviously own these franchises that have gotten the cities to pay for their stadiums more times than not, and that is probably going to be a thing of the past. So stadiums being built probably will maybe slow down. I don't know.
Certainly, yeah. It got these sports teams got away with it in the 60s and 70s. They somehow swindled voters into saying, "Hey, you build us a stadium," and they're like, "Yeah, sure." Then the city's like, "All right, what do I get out of this?" So we'll see. Also, I don't think it necessarily cities should always be worried about making profits and stuff like that. Sometimes you should just do things because citizens want it. I say that about here in Hamilton. We have those concerts. Those things don't need to make money. Sometimes it's just good for the city to have fun things to do.
Right.
So sometimes, even though it's a bad deal that the football stadium gets rebuilt in Cincinnati, maybe it's okay because, it's good that citizens want it.
Speaking of that, you know what it's time to build? It's time to build a nice arena in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That can host a lot of different things. Concerts. Most notably probably basketball or hockey.
That'd be fun.
Last question of the day, really fast as we go around the room. If you could take an NBA and or NHL franchise in Cincinnati guaranteed in 5 years, you're taking which one, Casey?
I would like an NHL team.
NHL?
You asking which we prefer or which is more likely?
Which one do you prefer?
I think I would prefer an NBA team because I would get back in the NBA. But I would go to more NHL games. So I don't know what that does for you. My answer is NBA, but NHL is right there with it.
I can't see myself getting into line changes and stuff like that when it comes to the NHL. I think I'm clamoring to get into the NBA. I would like to get into the NBA. It just, no one talks about it in the city. It's hard to do on an island. So I would like an NBA team.
I think that I've been convinced to do NHL now. I'll take either one. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll take either one.
I would do either
It would
one,
be
too.
amazing either way, but I think that I've bought into the idea of NHL.
Craig Sandlin says, what's the name of the downtown arena now? It's changed so many times. They should just change it Fox Sports Ohio.
Yeah, Fox Sports Ohio Arena.
Right. That's still up and kicking.
Shout out Heritage
Shout out
Bank.
Fox Sports Ohio. You know what? Think about like doing nothing and getting praised. Shout out to them.
We are Fox Sports.
That's right.
We are
Ohio.
Box lunch coming up here soon.
Yeah. Here we
All
go.
right, Box Lunch. It has been Off the Bench on a Monday, April 15th edition, tax day. We are overtime right now. Box Lunch next. Thanks, everybody.